Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 211. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We have Doug Sifford in the garage. Doug, welcome.
Thank you.
We're going to have Doug kind of tell us about what his role is, a little bit about what he has done in the cigar industry, where he's at now. And we're going to be smoking an Oscar Valladares McFly tonight that he brought with him. And looking forward to doing. I've smoked this once before, I think, when you dropped it off, so it's going to be a good refresher. I don't recall it as much, unfortunately. So love the marketing. We're going to talk about that as well. We've got Nate Hale, obviously, with us as well. For those on the audio, he is here. Welcome, Nate. How are you?
I'm doing all right today.
Good. We've got a live studio audience. We have, and I'm going to share it here as we get rolling on Facebook, especially. But hopefully, you guys have been notified on Facebook and YouTube. If you haven't and you're hearing this after the fact, make sure you put on your notifications so you get notified when we go live. For example, my Facebook has not notified me yet, and you have. But what I was talking about earlier, it's like I have no notifications right now.
My wife
is
watching. So.
And you run it. So
I know. And your wife and your wife's name?
Susan.
Susan, welcome to the show. Hopefully it goes well and you approve of what we talk about. If not, sorry, or in advance. I want to thank our sponsors before we get too far into this. Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. The guys there, we have a big event coming up. Smoking 10 event 2022. Smoking 10 event number 9. We've got over 10 companies coming. VIP are sold out. General admission is available, but really excited about that. So if you guys are in Columbus, Ohio, or the surrounding areas, we have people coming from all over the state, all over the area here. We have people coming from Florida. We've got people coming from Philly. We've got people coming from Georgia. We have people coming from Vietnam.
Yay!
So Ray will not be tuning in tonight. He's going to be traveling his first leg of the trip. So safe travels, Ray, for those that are listening and know Ray coming from Vietnam by way of Seattle, then to Columbus. So looking forward to seeing him in the area. Altadis USA, normally they'll give us the second smoke, the show. So thank you, Altadis, and for the continued support. Josh Bentley was on last week, and congratulations to him. He got a promotion.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll see him more than none. But I think we'll see him a little less than we used to.
Yeah, we talked about that a little bit.
Yeah. So hopefully we'll see him at some point.
He's been on enough.
He's been on enough.
He's such a great rep. We lost him.
Yeah, exactly. So thank you all to this. And also Be a Cigar Company. The gold and silver are available at Tinderbox at Easton, or you can contact them at on social media or beacigarcompany@gmail.com. Also, just kind of doing the laundry list here. Buyjack.com/bourbon and BS for any shirts. Nate's got the hoodie on. I've got the hoodie on with the barrel on it. He's got the 2020 shirt when the world hands you some BS. Light it up. We've got the podcast shirts. I've got on tonight the green.
Charity green, yeah.
The charity green, St. Patrick's Day. So that shirt's going to be a couple bucks more. It's $30, but $10 of that is going to go to St. Baldrick's Foundation. So if you guys want to rock that, put your order in ASAP.
And what is St. Baldrick's Foundation for?
It's for childhood cancer research. It's they've got, even here in Columbus, Easton, when they do the day before the 18th, so the day after St. Patrick's Day, they're doing St. Baldrick's Foundation head shaving. So you shave your head for charity, which I normally donate because I don't have the required equipment to get my head shaved for charity.
But you can still donate.
I can still participate. That's right. But we also have different color shirts for the podcast. We have the 3/4 sleeves, all that good stuff. So hopefully you guys check that out. Great company to work for. Everyone seems to like their shirts so far. And last but not least, you guys, patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast or Venmo @bourbon and BS. You guys have been amazing. Love the continued support. And then hopefully, like I said, if you have been on that Patreon page, contact us if you have not received a shirt from the original one. But any new members will be getting shirts according to the way it's laid out on the website. So check that out. Thank you guys very much. If you want to buy us a bottle, just send it to @bourbon and BS on Venmo, and we can buy something that you want us to drink and talk about. That's it. Cool. I don't know how long it took, longer than I wanted to.
That's okay. That's the monologue.
Yes, that's right. So, Doug, welcome.
Thank you.
Doug, you've been in the area for 4 years?
About 4 years, yeah.
4 years, came from Florida.
Right.
So before we get into the McFly, you want to just give a quick elevator speech of your...
Into the mic.
Sure. I I worked in the auto auction business for a long time and got out of that, and actually worked for Corona Cigars down in Florida for 6 years. And then my wife took a job in the Northern Kentucky, Cincinnati area in 2017, and we moved up there and ended up going to work for the Party Source down in Bellevue, Kentucky, and continued contacts with some people I'd met when I was at Corona, and eventually went to work as a broker for selling cigars in the area. And it turned a passion into a career.
Nice.
And I turned 65 on the 19th of February, and I'm going to continue to do this as long as it's fun, and it's a lot of fun. I mean, smoking cigars and drinking bourbon, how bad can it get? But
pretty good gig.
But I cover Western Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and Kentucky. I have 7 now manufacturers, and Oscar Valladares is one of my best, and definitely one of the more noticeable packaging that we have on the shelf. Everything he makes looks different than anybody else. He also, his cigars are really good. They have some unique flavors across the line, and it's a lot of fun selling them. It really is. The packaging on the McFly that we're highlighting tonight actually got an award at the TPE for their packaging.
Did it really?
So yeah,
nice.
So, and it's the newest version, and very good cigar. But
he's based out of Honduras, right?
He's in Honduras, and Don Lee. He has the old Oliva factory in Don Lee.
Okay.
And has been there from the beginning, I believe. But this area is a little colder than Florida, where we moved from.
Yeah.
And I'm learning to deal with that. But I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas, so I'm kind of used to some of the snow.
How long have you been in Kentucky now?
Been there since July of 2017, so almost 5 years.
Right.
Almost 5 years. And nice place down there. But I got to tell you, in the Midwest, we have some really savvy cigar smokers at the shops. You don't have, you still have the newbies come in, but the guys that are smoking cigars at a lot of the shops here really know good cigars. And so you kind of have to be on your game in order to get cigars in those shops.
There's not many places in the Midwest that are considered tourist destinations. So you don't have a bunch of people just coming and going, hey, what do you guys have? Granted, where the Tinderbox at Easton is, and because of the hotels that are there are a lot of conventions, you do get a lot of people from out of town. But a lot of the people, in the Midwest, it's guys and gals that they live there and they've been smoking cigars for years.
And it's fun though to talk to those guys that are savvy cigar smokers, because they know what they're looking for, and you can help guide them to the right cigar.
Absolutely.
And working a humidor is still the most fun, and pairing people with a good cigar, and then them liking the cigar and coming back and buying it again. And that's the whole thing. We're pairing the McFly with an Elijah Craig private barrel. Jake's Cigar Bar in Lexington did it, but I don't know if you can see it, but on the back is Doc Brown from Back to the
you're right.
Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of why they put that on there, because they wanted to pair it with the McFly.
That was intentional before that.
It was.
That's all.
Now, I in doing some research for the podcast today, I found out last year they came out with a Superfly, which is the 1970s throwback to the movie. Back to the Future is a reference to 1980s, and the next one they're going to come out with is going to be a 1990s reference, and then they're going to have a trilogy, from what I understand. So that was the plan from the beginning.
It's another fly.
I don't know if it probably will be another
fly. It has
fly.
to be, right? I mean, it has to be another fly at this point.
I don't know what
Super
movie
fly
reference
McFly.
you would
Pretty
do.
fly for a white guy.
Offspring. Big label.
Could
Well,
be,
the first Terminator
Terminator.
was in 80s.
but
But
they're
again, with
obviously
the fly theme, man.
they're movie buffs, so they obviously are probably going to reference a movie. I don't know what it is, but that was a plan all along, to do a 70s, 80s, and 90s trilogy.
I'm gonna be thinking about that like for the next like months.
80s.
But
right.
the McFly came out, I think, in October, and it's got a Mexican natural wrapper, Honduran binder, Honduran, Dominican, and Nicaraguan filler, and it's really a medium full smoke, especially on the retrohale. My preference is the Churchill, but it does come in a Toro, Churchill, and a 60. And I think it's one of those cigars you can smoke over and over and you don't get tired of it. It just doesn't wear your palate out. And
right now we're all smoking the Churchill, which is a 7x48. Toro's a 652, and then 60s 6x60.
60, yeah.
And you were talking, this is your favorite size.
It is. And I think that's probably because of the ring gauge, and it really just gives you a little more intensity in the flavor.
And this also has a shaggy foot.
Mm-hmm.
So for those who don't know what that is, the bottom quarter inch or so of the foot of the cigar is just the filler and the binder. There's no wrapper over top of it. Not many cigar makers do that, but I think what is cool about that, because you always hear people talk about how much flavor comes from the wrapper versus the binder and the filler. And, it all depends on the blend and the size of the cigar. So with that first quarter inch, which seems to go by pretty quick, you actually get the flavor of the filler and the binder. And then as soon as you hit that wrapper, you can taste the difference. Yeah. Now you're tasting that wrapper, and now your palate knows, oh, all these different flavors I'm getting, it's coming from the wrapper.
Yeah, I think on the light you get a little bit of a grassy flavor, and then it gets into the wrapper, and it really turns into more of a nutty, a little bit of spice, but still some earthy flavors.
It definitely brings balance to the cigar. When you first light this up, I mean, it does have a little bit of a brash opening.
Yeah, I thought there was quite a bit of kick.
Yeah, I mean that's what's going to be a lot of that flavor changes. I think it does. It's like a little bit in your face. It's like almost like a not polished cigar. I mean that's exactly what it is. We've done that exercise before where it's like you cut like, and not an intentional shaggy foot, but you look like a little razor. You cut that end off, and you can really learn what that wrapper brings to the combination, the recipe of the cigar. Is there intention to that, or is it just? Because I mean, with Oscar, it's like with the Leaf by Oscar, obviously, is the one that really put him on the map.
Got him started.
Put him on the map. And go ahead.
If you go back, Jim Robinson owns the Leaf by Oscar, Island Jim, and then he has the Big Johnny and the Woody. And but the Leaf by Oscar started as Leaf and Bean, and Jim's shop in Pittsburgh is called Leaf and Bean.
Yeah.
And then they went national and changed the name to Leaf by Oscar, which gave Oscar some recognition. And then 2012, Oscar started his own line and came out with the Oscar, and then the 2012 line. And now he has the Superfly. He's got the Cicerone. He's got the Ultra Q, and now the McFly. And it's all of the product is unique, different flavors, but all pleasant, in my opinion. They all give you a good experience when you're smoking the cigar. And the construction, they keep a class going down at the factory of rollers. When we had COVID, they lost like 70% of their rollers when they had to shut the factory down. And you can't just go out in the population and find a roller. I mean, so
it's a skill.
He has a class going all the time, and they're back up to 100% as of January 2021. And but they do a really good job of quality control and the construction for the most part. I mean, you'll always have a few, but for the most part, the construction is flawless.
Well, working in the retail industry, we always remind people that especially when they run into an issue, it's still a handmade product.
Right.
Like you're going to get some errors here or there. You just hope they're less common.
Yep.
But I remember the shop I first worked at, which had the word Leaf in the name of it. Back then, they had the opportunity, if they wanted to, they could have gotten the Leaf by Oscar. And back then, they were actually doing where they would put the shop's name on the band of the cigar. And so, like I said, the shop I worked at had Leaf in the name. It would have been a great combination of the two. And they passed it up. And for years, that shop wouldn't carry it. until a couple of the regulars.
Now they do.
Well, yeah. So a couple of the regulars went down to your area of town for an event, bought some bundles of the leaf,
Right.
brought them back into the shop. And then while the manager of the store was on the phone with his broker, the guys started passing them out to one another. And he's like, yeah, he won't order them. So yeah, you want one? Here you go. While he's on the phone with his broker, he's like, all right, go ahead, give me 2 bundles of each of the 4 wrappers.
That
It's
might
a
have
bold
been me.
move, man.
I know it's a bold move.
It's a dick move, actually. And if you're in a cigar shop, never do that. Never do that.
So
Without permission of the shop
Without
owner.
permission, exactly.
well, so I'll tell you this: by the time that shop finally got them in mid-November, in the last 6 weeks of the year, that shop sold about 200 Leaf by Oscar
That's
cigars.
Tinderbox actually had the first 20 bundles. You had to do a 20 bundle order. Had Tinderbox Easton on the bands there before you guys went national. Shannon, what you got?
I was just going to say, I'm really enjoying this cigar. I'm about to the halfway point. Like you said, the construction's great. It's holding together, nice ash. Getting to that halfway point, I'm starting to get to the meat of it, and it's starting to fill out more. Started out a little lighter, now it's getting a little fuller, and it's been an amazing smoke so far.
It's pairing well with this bourbon too. I mean, the private barrel is 127 proof, you said?
Yes.
And it's holding up to it. It really is.
And that's a big task. It's a big task. This bourbon has a lot of flavor. But with this McFly, let me ask you, so Doug, you've been trying to sell the McFly, right? So it's been in your portfolio since, you said, October?
Right. It was released.
So not very long. We're talking, 4 months, basically. I know with Oscar, the Leaf, it was almost like a gimmick. We, especially when it had the shop, so it had Tinderbox on it. So, to Nate's point, whatever shops did that, no one knew what Leaf by Oscar was. And they looked at this and they're like, what is that? Oh my God, that is the ugliest cigar. You had to teach them, well, so what happens? Let me show you. And you take it out of the leaf that's around it, and then you have a beautiful cigar underneath. Then you have the things like the Superfly, especially, and now the McFly. Does in a sense, I call it a little gimmicky, you know what I mean? Does it help all the time, hurt some? Does it do a little bit of both, depending on what you're what shop or what smokers are getting at it? Because it's a bold statement. I mean, this packaging on here, it's going to be tough to see on there, but you might be able to see how it kind of changes. It's very retro. It's 80s style. Yeah. It's that kind of almost like 80s 3D thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks like a 3D thing.
And it is. And then on the band, you've got the bright colors, right? And It's called McFly, and it's almost like, again, the 80s style, this glittery
disco
print.
almost.
But it's it reminds me of shit that you had back then. In the 80s, all toys and a lot of the teenager stuff, MTV almost kind of style too.
Disco and
disco
all that stuff.
But I mean, so I guess the question, originally was, does it help? Does it hurt? Does it depend?
It helps to get attention.
Yeah.
And you get the cigar in guys' hands. If it's not a good cigar, it doesn't help. But it helps to get some attention when it first hits the shelf, and they'll try it. Mm-hmm. And once they try it, they're going to be hooked. Yeah. I mean, the Superfly, Wild Hunter came out at the same time in 2019, and they were a little gimmicky.
Yeah.
But they did well. Cicerone is a little gimmicky. They changed the packaging on that to where they have the painting. That Cicerone is an award-winning artist in Honduras, and he painted, I guess, for 3 years, 5 different box tops, and the cigar wrapper, the paper wrapper around it matched what was on the box top. But the cigars were all the same. Again, you get it in the hands of the people, they enjoy it, and I don't know anybody that hates stuff that Oscar makes. That's the thing.
So now you got the name behind it, because of the success of the Leaf. You have that success.
Yeah.
Because I guess for me, it's tough to see someone that always smokes say some of the more iconic brands. You really have to be open to the cigar.
You have to be open to trying new stuff.
Much like the bourbons we talk about, some of the gimmicky bottles and stuff like that, because a lot of times people do get burned a little bit when they say even if you do more traditional, this is a beautiful, box, and the band is just like, it looks like an expensive cigar, and you smoking like, this is shit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like on the other side, this is a beautiful presentation on a totally different level, right? It's a totally different angle, but you have to get it into someone's hands to smoke something like this, because I don't necessarily see a Padron 64 smoker. That's their go-to cigar, and they see this next to it and they're like, what the hell is that? Kind of like that Leaf one, It's like that's loud.
You have to have a staff that knows the product that can recommend it to someone.
Yeah.
There are some people that, from a retail side, they do, they will try something based on the packaging, based on the band, how it looks. The good thing about this one is whether it's on a shelf in the box with that box top sticking out, or because we didn't talk about it, like it's also got a secondary band. So the band takes
massive
up most of the cigar.
Yeah.
And it's got the same colors as the primary. So you got that light blue transitioning into purple. The colors and that glitter look on it, like if this is in bins, like at the tinderbox, it's still going to stand out.
It'll stand out.
And it's going to cause people to ask questions.
Yeah. I think the key is you give them those guys that are maybe a legacy brand, primary smoker, you give them incentive to try it. And that's why you do things where you do a tasting and you make it worth their while. You put it in their hands and you say, look, you try this. If you don't like it, I'll buy you something else. Or you give them incentive, like another cigar or whatever. You do maybe some of the ones they like. Maybe they're a leaf smoker, or maybe they're because the leaf has some really good flavor if you can get it into their hands.
Yeah. And the leaf again has, I think from my vantage point, I mean, it's put Oscar's name on the map.
Exactly.
So this is, again, if someone smokes the leaf by Oscar, whether it be the Connecticut, the Corojo Sumatra, and
Maduro.
The Maduro, whatever they're smoking, if you're on more than maybe Connecticut's not a real mild cigar, actually, in my opinion. So any of those, someone comes in, they're leaf smoker. Hey, this is a new one from Oscar. That's actually some clout that wasn't there a few years back.
Well, the blends are all good from his shop.
Right.
The blends are all good from the factory. And if they have some experience with Oscar, it's easier to get them to try a new one when it comes out. But, you have those legacy, and in my opinion, there's some cigars in the legacy brands that haven't changed over the years. And every cigar Oscar makes, there's some differentiation between them. They don't all taste the same.
No.
You're getting some different flavors, and the complexity is different. And for me as a cigar smoker, I enjoy that. I like the complexity and the changes of the flavors because it keeps me engaged in the smoke.
That Alter Q is one of my favorites by Oscar. I remember when the Tinderbox got those in, and there were a few customers that, because Tinderbox doesn't have the boxes on the shelf, they have the bins. But initially when the Alter Q came in, like we had that in the back. We had smoked it as a staff, so we knew what that cigar was about. And then when we would have a customer come in looking for recommendations, or we thought that cigar fit their profile, like, I know what you normally smoke, you got to try this.
Yeah.
So, like, try something. It's going to be a little different. Get past the label or the packaging, anything like that. Just smoke the cigar.
The story,
give it a shot.
The story behind the Alter Q is that altar is actually patterned after an actual altar in Honduras.
Really?
And there were 16 kings honored on that altar. And there's 16 cigars in the Alter Q box, and each one's numbered and has a different king on it. So
that's a story that you wouldn't know, obviously, just walking into a shop.
Right. But I mean, everything he does has some intention to it. And, like Cicerone has showings in galleries across the country. I mean, he's an award-winning artist, and you wouldn't know that unless you take the band off of that Cicerone and read the back. But that's a really good cigar too. Again, medium full, but totally different than the McFly.
Right.
Has a little more nuttiness and creaminess, but it's still a medium full smoke. And
you said this is a San Andres natural.
No, just Mexican natural.
Mexican natural is what they say.
Okay, so
with the Honduran binder, Honduran, Dominican, and Nicaraguan filler. And I think Byron Duarte, our master blender, does an excellent job of blending the cigars to where he gets a different flavor from each one. I mean, the Oscar is the one he came out with first, and he's got a Maduro and a Habano in that, and it is a phenomenal cigar. But even the Superfly has a little more Ligero. It's got the San Andreas Maduro on it, and it's probably the strongest of the cigars besides the Maduro Oscar that he makes. But it has done very, very well, and it's been consistent since it was introduced. And I think that's the key to any cigar, is the consistency it has after it's introduced. Because a lot of guys will buy something new because it's new on the shelf.
Yeah, we talked about that today.
But about getting that second purchase.
Yeah, you'll get through the first box or two in anything that you bring in the shop, typically in a retail shop, depending on what kind of environment it is. But I mean, if you have a frequent, like actual retail walk-through traffic, not just a lounge, lounges are a little tougher because you have like the regular people, and that's who you have to buy what they want. And if they don't like it, one person doesn't like it, they're gonna let everyone know, and no one will try it. Then like, oh, no, I'm good.
The influencer
heard it wasn't that good, so I'm good. I'm not even gonna spend my money on it. But yeah, I mean, this cigar. Nate, what do you think of this cigar? Where would you classify the body of it?
The body comes across more, I would say, for me, medium plus. Definitely not a full body cigar. No. I think medium full would be the strongest I would go on it. Initially on that shaggy foot, there was quite a bit of spice. And then to me, I thought it was kind of a surprise, being a Mexican natural wrapper. When it hit the wrapper, it actually mellowed out a little bit and became more of a balanced cigar. Yeah. And now, like, I get a little bit more earthiness, a little bit more leather in it than, just that spice. There's still that spice. And then the retrohale. Yeah. My goodness, there's a good amount of spice in the retrohale, but it's short-lived. It's short finish on that spice. The spice doesn't just sit there and linger in your nose or on the back of your palate, but you definitely taste it, and you can definitely get it there on your nose when you breathe it out. Yeah.
The thing I'm impressed with this bourbon is, as strong as the bourbon is, the cigar is not lost. It holds up to the bourbon.
It does, and it gets a little bit knocked down a little bit, I think, from like your initial, like your sip, and then you go back to the cigar. Yeah. The flavor's a little bit muted or subdued, I think, until you maybe set the glass down and smoke the cigar for a little while, like, another couple minutes, and then it all comes flooding back. I was surprised with that, because Nate, I agree with pretty much everything you said there. I do get that sweetness, at least in this size. I can't recall which size you handed me months ago.
Probably the Toro.
This one does have, like, it's got a little bit of that front of the tongue.
Right.
You getting that, Sean? Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a cool thing, because it kind of is. It's a hint, but it kind of stays with the whole smoke and almost has an aftertaste on my palate of this little, like, sweetness, which, again, not knowing where from the different countries the tobacco is coming from, or the seeds or anything like that, but it's an interesting note that I would not expect from when you describe it with a Mexican natural or whatever that really means, but not a typical thing when I think of like a San Andreas Mexican or just that in general. They don't typically blend to have sweetness.
No.
Well, and sometimes you've talked about it in some of the San Andreas wrap cigars that we've smoked. You tend, and sometimes me as well, you tend to get a little dryness out of it. Do you get that with this?
There's a hint, but I don't know if that is because of the
wrapper. Or
the heat of the whiskey.
Okay.
I don't know if that's drying me out. I mean, I'm drinking a lot of water tonight because I do kind of feel a little bit of that dryness, but I don't. It's not like overpowering like some cigars, especially years ago. I think from, again, my view, it's a lot of the stuff they use this Mexican wrapper leaf. I think there may be, I guess my own theory is that they've aged some of the Mexican tobacco longer than 10 years ago when you started seeing San Andreas wrapper leaves on there. They were a little bit harsher to look at even. They were kind of like this uglier, in my opinion, little uglier wrapper leaf typically. And it did produce like whatever blends that I had, again, 10, 15 years ago. It was kind of like this bitterness was expected with a Mexican wrapper.
Mexican tobacco has come a long way in the last decade.
And I think it has. And I think people like Oscar, I don't know if he's buying that. I know that like guys like AJ, we've been talking about on the show recently, he's got a ton of Mexican wrapper leaf. I guess, that has a serious amount of aging on it. So when you use that and some of the tobaccos, I don't know. I don't know enough about those cigars back then that I was smoking that had San Andreas or trying them. But I think that, like you said, they've come a long way. And I think that people like an Oscar. And who's the master blender?
Byron Duarte.
Byron. You can only imagine they just keep getting better and better and knowing what to pair this stuff up with. You know what I mean? Anytime you're working on blends, I mean, you can work with a wrapper leaf and you can do dozens of different blends of tobacco to go with it.
I think that's one thing they do a good job of at the factory is the aging.
Yeah.
And because, a lot of times you'll get a cigar that has a harshness to it. And some guys relate that to the Ligero leaf, and it's not really the Ligero leaf. It's that the tobacco hasn't been aged long enough.
Hasn't sat.
And I think everything he makes, I don't really get the harshness. I'll taste the Ligero, but I think they just do a really good job of waiting on the tobacco to be aged properly.
Well, I will say, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead. I think that's what makes a difference in his cigars.
And I think it shows. This wrapper leaf, I will say, and this is just honest feedback, it's almost a good thing, at least with the cigar I see in my hand. I'm trying to look at your guys' wrapper leaf. My wrapper leaf is not, like, there's quite a few veins. It doesn't have, at least in, like, I don't see a whole lot of sheen to it. It's not the prettiest wrapper leaf on my cigar. I don't know about you guys.
It's not oily or have like some of the crystal specks that we talked about last week with the cigar we smoked.
But it's the construction's really strong. Yeah. I do like it. But I was going to say with this one, it's almost a good thing that it's got all that the bands on it, because if I saw this, like someone handed it to me and they're like, "Hey, what do you think of this?" I'm like, I don't know, man. It's not the prettiest thing.
Yeah, it looks like a $6 cigar.
Yeah, like, but you light it up and the construction is great. I mean, again, so it was just an observation there. What is the retail of these MSRP?
The MSRP is at let's see.
Put you on the spot. Sorry,
I should know. It's gonna be in the $9 to $11 range, depending on the size.
So a very nice average price point. So you're not breaking the bank trying something like this out.
And I did, his pricing went up on these. They're the new ones, but the Superfly that came out last year, pricing didn't go up.
Okay.
So, or Superfly came out in 2019, and so what he's doing is when he introduces a new line, he'll take a price increase on those sizes rather than increase the whole line. And he hasn't taken a price increase on the whole line.
Okay.
The Leaf by Oscar is taking a price increase in April 1.
And how many that stayed around the same though for a while?
Well, I've been with him 4 years, and it's been the same since for 4 years.
That's everyone right now in every industry. Cigars are no different. If you guys are walking into a brick and mortar, especially, you're going to see a lot of the pricing kind of January 1 or February 1. They all started going up. So some shops will just go through and just up it when they get the price increase. Some people, like shops, will wait until they get their next order in. They'll sell it at the old price. It's kind of it's not super dramatic. I mean, some of them we've seen have gone up $1.50.
Yeah, I'm not anticipating that with these, but one thing Oscar does also is he has a collector's edition where it has 12 cigars, has all his line in that collector's edition, and that's available for it. You get 12 cigars for like $100.
Good deal.
And
the sampler,
the sampler pack, but it has one of everything, and it's also in a nice little collector's case where it's humidified, and I mean you get the Bovita pack in it and everything. I
noticed you guys throw the Bovitas in there. That's nice. That's really nice to see.
Quite a few companies have started doing that over the last couple of years.
I mean,
he's also cellophaning the new stuff that comes out.
Okay.
And the barcodes you're starting to see barcodes on them also.
I noticed it's on here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's got that, but the next step for these will be to cellophane them.
Really?
He's started cellophaning the Superflies and some of the other blends.
It's a shame.
I think with this one though, actually, because one of the things we tell people when people see the leaf, and so the leaf is not wrapped in cellophane or tissue paper like some cigars. It is wrapped in a tobacco leaf. And we explain to people, like, because there have been people that's like, man, that is an ugly looking cigar. Like, no. That's just a tobacco leaf that's moistened a little bit, and then that's wrapped around the cigar. Right. It does the same job as cellophane, but it also provides a little bit of moisture because they wet it just a little bit, and it's there to protect the cigar.
Yeah, actually, we can't say it has a purpose. It's strictly because the copyright on the leaf. It's just the cellophane.
Right.
If it has a purpose, you can't.
This one, because you have such a massive secondary band.
Legal team's on that right now.
I think because you have this massive secondary band, it does the same purpose that cellophane would.
Well, yeah, and you look at the shaggy foot. Like, what do you? I mean, you can't even tell if there's a crack on the shaggy foot.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, binder leaf is ugly. So,
you could. I think this is one you could get away without putting cellophane on, just because you have that large secondary band. Both bands together, cover
the cigar.
80% of the cigar. So,
I like the fact that it has it though, and you can take it off, and you still have the band on there.
Yeah.
So you can actually still have the band and kind of gauge where you're at. And
yeah, I typically will smoke the cigar with a band on it. I know some people take it off, but I typically do.
It gives you a place to hold the cigar.
I still love this. I mean, the marketing behind it, I got to be honest. I don't know if I walked into a shop and I saw this on there and the guy's like, hey, check this out. This is the McFly. I'm like, that's awesome. I don't know if I'd buy it, though. So I'd have to be sold on this cigar, honestly.
Would you buy it if you were told that it was made by Oscar?
It would, yeah. So knowing what I know, just even as a consumer, I would be like, okay, I do like the leaf. Okay, you're selling me on it now. Tell me about the blend, and then you kind of rattle that off. And like, what's the Mexican natural? It's just that's what they're calling it. It's kind of like an undisclosed type of thing. All right. What's the price? And like, that's to Churchill, whatever. It's like $11, $12. All right, that's not so. That's okay. All right.
Yeah,
and I'd probably get it because I'm an '80s baby. You know what I mean? Like I was born in 1980, so I'd probably be like, all right, fuck it, just give me one. Let me smoke it. Jesus.
You like Back to the Future?
I love Back to the Future, and I love this '80s stuff. I mean, it's awesome.
So what was the thing that made the DeLorean be a time machine? Do you remember?
The flux capacitor.
The flux capacitor
and plutonium.
And well,
that had to power the flux capacitor. Oh, I'm sorry. Is that another trivia question?
Well, it could be
until it got updated to run off of trash.
At that age, when I was watching that, and it's like the Libyans, like I don't know how they found me. No idea. Like it was like like I didn't get it. I was just like, oh, Libyans. Didn't know like it was from a country. Like I was a kid, like, oh, Libyans, it's a gang. I don't know who this is. But yeah, I do like it. What are we drinking? We're drinking the Elijah Craig. This is, we called it the Great Scott in the beginning of it.
Great Scott, private barrel. Again, Jake's Cigar Bar in Lexington put it together, and they put Doc Brown on the back specifically to kind of pair it with the McFly. And it's
127 proof.
But it I don't think it drinks that hot.
It doesn't drink like an 80 proof, but it doesn't. Yeah, it's a very pleasant sipper for sure.
And it's also got a 9-year age statement.
9 years.
Not non-chill filtered, uncut, straight from the barrel.
It's got some punch to it. I mean, it's got the heat. It lingers a bit, but there's a what is that flavor?
I get a little caramel on the back. I don't know.
It's like caramel apple.
Yeah, a little bit. But it does have some spice on the front end.
It does, and it finishes for a nice long time here. Nate, what are your notes on this?
So it's funny you said caramel apple on the finish, because I actually get apple and spice on the nose.
Okay.
Especially in this Glencairn glass. Mm-hmm. I definitely got some apple on the nose, and then on the palate, it's got kind of this grain or bread note to it for me. And again, I was sipping this before I lit up the cigar. Not only does it have that bread note, but it's also got a tobacco note to it as well.
That might be the cigar you're.
But like I said, I got that before I was smoking the cigar.
Were you smoking before you came?
No, I haven't had a cigar today.
I'm just trying to narrow it in.
I appreciate it. But no, I was getting that note on the whiskey even before I lit up the cigar.
Yeah.
It tastes like you're, eating a piece of toast and smoking a cigar. That's how the whiskey tastes.
Toast drenched in alcohol.
Or as you would say, toasted bread.
Toasted bread. Because what it is, it's called toasted bread. I think they just
toast.
No.
Yeah, it does.
Toast a bagel.
But no, it does have a very bold spice on the finish. but there is just this little sweetness with it as well. It's like a candied spice.
Yeah.
It's a nice pairing.
It is a nice pairing. It does have, I don't know if it's that Kentucky hug necessarily, but it's like that's where I'm getting this 127 proof. To be honest with you on this, is that it's borderline, and this is not a thing you put in the pamphlet about this, like it would not say. It's like borderline, like between like that Kentucky hug and like almost like I'm getting heartburn. You know what I mean? Like it's something's working down there on this bottle.
See, for me, that
Kentucky, yeah, you're choking here.
See, for me, I get that spice to about right.
Kentucky Heimlich.
I get that spice like down here at the top of the sternum. I don't get it down here. It
did have enchiladas though for dinner, so that might have been part of it.
For me at least, it ends up a little bit higher. Like you're getting the hug down here, and
it might be the enchiladas now that I think about it. Yeah, that could have been at the Mexican food. Go ahead there, Sean.
It's like a bronchial Kentucky hug. It's like up in here for sure, but it's I think it's the flavor of the cigar is amazing. I do get that we talked about earlier. It was like just a kind of a grass, kind of a it's like an earthy flavor, and definitely with the whiskey on the nose, it's or not the nose. They definitely get like a apple or some kind of fruit like that, and there's definitely a little bit of spice on the back end. Very sweet though. They pair very well together. I've been doing like take a hit, drink, and
yeah.
They just really pairs well. I've had worse Kentucky hugs. This isn't just kind of a quick hug.
What was his name?
Bruce. Anyway,
Shannon.
Yeah.
So anyway, do you think this cigar would pair well with other bourbons that you've had?
Oh, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think it's better. This is a good pairing. Go ahead. Sorry.
I think that's the thing I get is this would go with a lot of bourbons that I've had.
Sure.
Not the only reason we did this is because Doc Brown's on the back.
Sure.
Great Scott. Great Scott.
I think this is one of those where kind of like last week, what was the gentleman's name that we had remote last week? Travis. So we were pairing the cigar we had, the Upman Heritage, with a barrel proof rye. And Travis, when we told him that, he was concerned that a barrel proof was going to be too strong. And it was coming in at like 113.
Especially rye.
Yeah, it was coming in at 113.63.
What was the bottle again?
The Nashville Barrel Company.
Yeah.
I think it was 113.6.
Yeah.
But as we're giving our ratings, we're like, no. Like this cigar is so strong, has so much flavor. You need a strong whiskey to stand up to it, because something like 80, 90, even up to 100 proof might get overpowered by that cigar. This cigar has got so much flavor that you almost need something like a single barrel or this type of, maybe not necessarily, you don't necessarily have to go all the way up to 127, but something like 110 to 127, like there's so much flavor with the whiskey that both of them kind of stand up to one another. So with the flavor of this cigar, I think this cigar might overpower a lot of whiskeys that are under 100 proof, unless it's a whiskey that even coming in under 100 proof still has quite a bit of spice to it. Like I think this cigar might go well with just regular Buffalo Trace, because the spice that's in Buffalo Trace, which is that's a 90 proof bottle. But I think with Elijah Craig being such a high corn content, it provides enough sweetness and flavor to where it stands up.
I can see that.
So this is just single barrel proof Elijah Craig. It's a 78% corn, 12% malt barley
for their normal.
Yeah, well,
would it be
their mash bill for the regular Elijah Craig is 78 corn, 12% malt barley, 10% rye. This is the exact same thing, just 9 years old and barrel proof.
Right.
What's the proof on this again?
127.
Wow.
127.0.
It's kind of a sleeper. I mean, it does have heat, but you wouldn't think. I mean, I'm thinking like, 110 or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, it's definitely got
surprising.
It's a sleeper, and it'll probably put you to sleep in that regard too.
But I think part of that is because
part two will be fun tonight, boys.
But I think part of that's because the mash bill has such a high corn content that when you do a barrel proof, there's enough sweetness to kind of overpower the spice that you get from having such a high alcohol content.
I get what you're saying. No, definitely has some sweetness to it. What do you think, Doug?
I like
Just
the
the
bourbon.
whiskey. You like?
I like the bourbon. I like it a lot. I get I'm retrohaling almost every puff.
I can't.
And when I do that,
That,
I think the spice comes through of the cigar, and I take a sip of whiskey, and it just pairs well with it in the mouth. I mean, the palate has so much complexity that it's just a real enjoyable experience.
Yeah.
What do you think, Steve, on the packaging? Do you think this has a place in
don't even
in humidors?
Yes, I do. This again, I'd say it's a different one. This is a cigar, kind of like the Leaf was, like Superfly. I think this would sell very well to, and I don't know exactly the demographics as far as age or anything else, but I mentioned it earlier. This is a bold move by Oscar and your guys' team, because this is not going to sell to everyone just based on packaging alone.
Right.
That you make the marketing side of it in cigars and everything else. We talk about the bourbons in any industry, but I mean, by doing a bold move like this, calling it McFly, having an ode to Back to the Future, doing the 80s theme with the packaging, it's a very complete marketing idea. But this is something that, at your guys' office, whoever
Right.
came up with this design, you're not going to sell it to everyone.
Right.
But that's any cigar. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's like you make a full-bodied cigar. It's not going to sell to everyone. Like
Right.
mild smokers aren't going to get it. But like I said, this is, to your point, you said earlier, the staff would have to at least introduce it or know about the product.
Right.
Because it'll stand out. It'll get people's attention. I love this, the glittery McFly thing. If it's in bins, you're going to have a hard time seeing it. You can see McFly a little bit easier on the box, like so that you have that classic slide top box, that you have the notch so you can put the top up there. So it's kind of like it opens up. It sits really well. The overall design is very intelligent, obviously, in my opinion, that you guys have that complete marketing idea. The whole package it goes well together. The McFly is the marketing, has nothing to do with the cigar.
Right.
So like that is something that, again, that is where I look at it as possibly being gimmicky, which can help with certain clientele, and with others, they're like, the fuck is this? You know what I mean?
You got to get past the gimmick.
You have to get past the gimmick, but you do the gimmick as an eye catcher.
Right.
So I can see the cigar, people will buy it, they'll like it, they smoke it again. I can also see people in a shop, like especially like a destination or a lounge, depending on, again, the crowd, they may buy this and honestly take off all the bands, so that because they're not the type of person that wants the attention when they're smoking a cigar.
Right.
And they're sitting with friends or people around them smoking even the Leaf by Oscar.
Right.
This is bold. This is like, it's kind of like what the hell are you smoking? And people don't like that attention sometimes.
What do you think of the long term? Because when I heard about the trilogy, they come out with something for the 90s, and pairing those three things, that the 70s, 80s, and 90s in a trilogy package. Do you think that's something that's again will have a place in a humidor? Maybe I can see those three in a humidipack or whatever.
That's what I was about to say. A sampler of the trilogy would be the best way to introduce people to any of these.
Yeah.
Because you'll look at it and they're like, what is that one? And depending on what you guys have, as like, say you have a sticker or something on or if you have a fresh pack or whatever it might be, but what's going to be on there. But that would be one where like, oh, that's cool. Okay. Like, Superfly, McFly, and
whatever.
Well,
they
I was hoping you say it.
That reminds me of a couple months ago when we had Josh Bentley on, and we had the Aging Room Rare Collection, and that was release number 1.
Yeah.
And he talked about how they were going to do future rare collection releases. And I made the comment to him, I was like, so let's say that Raphael does 3 or 4 rare collections, they're limited run for each one. Is he going to hold some of them back and possibly do a sampler? And Josh looks at me and goes, who the hell have you been talking to?
It makes sense, right? I mean, but some of those trilogies, like we talked about, again, not to get off brand here, but we were talking about the Trinidad, the Spiritu number 1, the Spiritu number 2. there's a trilogy there, but it's a lot more subtle. Like with the first one, it was all Nicaraguan, even though they kind of did an ode to Cuba on the marketing. And then the number 2 was more Brazilian tobacco, so the colors were more from Brazil. Purposeful, more subtle. This is not subtle. So again, I think there's a place in a humidor for it, and I think if you smoke the cigar, you're going to like it.
I think the marketing is intended to differentiate themselves from the legacy brands,
and it's very clear. I tell you, it's fun.
Yeah,
that's it.
And I think you're putting fun into, like, a conversation piece, because you will get that one person, that one regular, or that one person that knows a lot about cigars. They smoke it, they like it, and then they're like, oh yeah, no, it's McFly. It's like, isn't that cool? Like, it reminds me of, like, Back to the Future. It reminds me of again, a person my age. I'm 41. It's born in 1980. So this is something that I think, like, 70s babies, 80s babies, right, like, and things go in cycles, you know what I mean? But, if you were born millennial, like, if you were born and you're just now turning 21, I mean,
you don't even know
they may not even know what it is. Yeah. I don't know. I'm sure a lot of them do, but I don't know.
I think newer cigar smokers in the younger age group, they might gravitate towards this because of the packaging. Right. They might see the colors and everything like that. And, kind of like how I mentioned last week, cigars, just like with bourbon, have gone through cycles where all of a sudden you've hit a time period where newer cigar smokers don't want to smoke what their dad or their grandfather smoked. They're looking for something new, something that stands out. And this is definitely something that stands out. It's not one of those legacy brands, as you called them.
Right.
It's something different, because they don't want to smoke what everyone else has smoked. They want to smoke something new.
I get what Oscar's doing by making it the name recognition. And obviously, I don't know. He's been very successful, and this is just my opinion. More consistency, the McFly by Oscar, the Superfly by Oscar.
Right.
I get it. That one day it's already getting to that point, but Oscar Valladares will be well known. But if I say a leaf smoker and I say, hey, this is by Oscar Valladares, who? Oh,
Leaf by Oscar.
Leaf by Oscar. This is McFly by Oscar.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I think that might have been like the brand consistency, that he's like, he's like Prince. He's just Oscar. Like, no one knows your last name. It's fine. You're Oscar. You're the Oscar of the cigar industry.
Yeah.
And that's all he had to put on there is by Oscar. Like, if you're on this, and again, we're picking this apart, it's beautiful. But if it just said, McFly by Oscar, and underneath it is by Oscar, it would carry even more clout, because there's got to be people that smoke Leaf by Oscar, and they're going to look at it in Oscar Valladares, and they're like, yeah, you probably like that. Why?
Same guy makes
Oscar.
It. Yeah.
Oh, that's the same guy. I didn't know his last name. Yeah.
Well, there's some confusion even with people that smoke the Leaf. They think Oscar owns the Leaf, right, because it's Leaf by Oscar.
Right. And
it's actually Jim Robinson, Island Jim, that owns the Leaf by Oscar brand.
And Oscar makes it for him. Yeah, so maybe that might be part of the reason why he put his full name on there, to differentiate from that.
Well, Jim was the one that put Leaf by Oscar. He was the one that told Oscar, look, this will help you, because he was trying to get started, and it put him on the map. Yeah. And it gave him the ability to launch his own brand. In 2012. Excuse me.
You're good.
It's a very subtle sneeze.
Yeah. But like you said, this is a definite intentional marketing plan.
Yeah.
Because when you go in and you see this, and especially if they have the Oscar product on a shelf with the boxes, you're going to see that it's going to stand out from everything else.
It should sit nearby any of the other Oscar products, so that there is some brand consistency, there's some recognition there, because that's the last thing. This will grab attention, but I mean, the last thing you want to do is to put something in a walk-in humidor, or even online, or wherever you're buying your cigars, and you're relying on people to sell the products for you.
Right.
You're already kind of behind a little bit. But it's the same thing. You brought in another brand today that you're repping.
Mexican brand, yeah.
And it's like, if I saw that, I wouldn't know what it was, because they're new. You know what I mean? Like, it was a nice package. It looked good, but I wouldn't have known that it's all Mexican. I wouldn't know like anything with a story, because you're educating people, especially in the beginning, of what you got out there. Again, the iconic brands, we talk about that, even like Monte Cristo, all the different things they're doing with like AJ Fernandez and Plasencia. Like, you're starting to grab people that would have never smoked another Monte Cristo because their dad smoked it, or I smoked a classic series. I don't like Monte Cristos. They're too mild for me. It's like same thing here. Your brands or Oscar, all the blends are so different. There's an education thing that's why it takes time, really.
Yeah. And I like the differentiation. I like the differences in the blends because it keeps, like I said, it keeps me engaged in the cigar.
100%.
And that's what's fun about this industry is new stuff is always coming out. We're not at a place where we're done with new blends and new things that capture our attention.
Yeah.
And that, in my opinion, that's where some of the legacy brands have gotten lazy. And I like the fact that Monte Cristo came out with that Nicaraguan. I like the fact that they're coming out with some different blends that grab my attention.
The Espada series.
Their entire the Espada line, and then also the H. Upman ones that they've been doing. Like those are legacy brands, but they've started to branch out and go to Plasencia, AJ, some other people, and they're starting to get more traction with newer smokers than just the legacy ones. But you're right, a lot of the legacy brands, not going to name any, but they just keep making the same product over and over because people love them. They've been smoking for years. They're smoking them. They're successful. They pay the bills and then some. But then you have those companies, those legacy brands like Monte Cristo and even Romeo Julieta. They've been doing some different things. The Reserve Real Nicaragua, the Connecticut Nicaragua. Like they're not just sticking to their roots and doing the same 10 SKUs. Yeah. They are branching out and doing, because there's so much different tobacco out there. There's so many different ways to blend it and make a great cigar. That's what they're going after.
Here's what you'll learn. I mean, it's like, not to stay on Altadis. I know they're a sponsor, but we're trying to focus on Oscar here. But they did like the Romeo by Romeo. They did the Monte by Monte. And some of those have been discontinued, right? Because their market, they weren't really grabbing a whole lot of market share from what I saw, but they had some good blends. But Monte Cristo ones, they looked at that as that's not like the iconic Monte Cristo. Right. This has got to be a little bit like more of a budget line because they're making it a little bit more gimmicky. Romeo by Romeo. This is something that I don't know how this will do. It's so new. The McFly, the Superfly does well, correct?
Yes.
Superfly does well. So to take the next step and do a McFly, I think it's fun. This cigar, if you put another Oscar, just one of your more storytelling, some of his heritage or, like a Honduran heritage on there, I don't know if it would sell better that way with the more traditional labeling and packaging than it does with this. That's a tough, I don't even know how, without just doing time. You can't just do a focus group and put the same cigar ahead of you and say, what do you think of this packaging? And then you have like a classic Cuban, like plain box that just says, whatever. Oscar. Yeah. It's tough to say.
I think it's a deliberate plan to try and keep this, because like the Cicerone box is crazy, has that different abstract kind of art on it, and it captures attention.
Right.
And then the Ultra Q is not retail friendly because it's a huge box.
Yeah.
And there's only 16 cigars in it. But and then you've got the Oscar, which comes in a press type box.
Yeah.
That has 11 sticks in it, and it's wide.
Yeah.
Again, not really retail friendly.
Not retail friendly.
But it differentiates itself, and it's got a little bit of a leaf on the bottom of 2/3 of the cigar is covered by a candela leaf.
Yeah.
And they've got the Maduro and the Habano in it, but it's a phenomenal smoke. Yeah. And if you can get past the gimmick, and I will tell you, when I saw Leaf for the first time, I was in Corona, and I looked at it and I said, "That's a gimmick," and so you pass on it until you actually try it, and you say, "Man, that's a good cigar."
You see someone else smoking, you're like, "Is that any good?"
Well,
yeah, it's really good, actually.
That's like what I told you. The shop I used to work at, you had a couple guys that absolutely loved the cigar, and then started passing them out in the shop.
Once again, do not do that.
It's a dick move, Larry.
You told it twice now.
But it got those guys to smoke that cigar. So then when that shop finally brought in, those guys just started buying it up like crazy because it was a good cigar. That shop kind of relied a little bit on word of mouth, but word of mouth will get you so far.
Yeah.
Word of mouth will get you through the first order.
Yeah.
It's having a consistent product that's a very good product that gets you through every order after that.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that's something that, again, and we can get to the round out part one here soon, but that's from the retail standpoint too. Something like this comes out, you got to think, typically if a shop's been there for a while and they know their clientele or their walk-through traffic or what their strengths are, when you bring in something new like this, and you're not just looking for a one and done, like, hey, let's, all right, this will be my what's new for April. You know what I mean? That's a sale for you and for Oscar. But again, staying power, when you have something like that, you're selling something when you already have a full humidor of cigars of different brands and whatever your selection is. That's sometimes part of it. It's like, yeah, it is a good cigar. It's gimmicky. I mean, the leaf does well. I don't know. Let me see if people start asking for it. Right. And now you got your work cut out for you because, like, as you know, in your position as a rep, it's like I'm hearing, like, not with this one. I'm just saying hypothetically, this happens for you with any brand probably. It's like, God, I just did 10 visits and 10 of them, or 9 out of 10 of them were like, let me see. Let me wait and see if anyone is asking for it. And then you're like, well, fuck. I mean, that's going to take forever if 1 out of 10 accounts pick this up.
Yeah, but that's also why it's important as a rep to work with the humidor. I mean, you go to a shop and you say, hey, I'd like to do a tasting with this. Would that be okay with you guys? You get it into the hands. Yeah. And if they like it, then they're going to ask for it. Hey, that's, are you exactly guys? Right. And you know what? You don't need everybody to buy a McFly.
No.
If I get 4 or 5 guys that come in and buy 4 or 5 cigars a week, we're on, and we don't want stuff. Your shop is not a museum. We don't want stuff just sitting on the shelf.
We get that question every once in a while. What's like dark and oil that's been in there forever? And you got that question, didn't you, Nate?
Yes.
This last weekend.
I did.
Your response was like, well, we actually sell pretty much everything. So nothing back, like, it has all the age coming into the shop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like they ship it to us so you can smoke it.
Yeah.
I got this cigar that's been back there for 15 years. Done. Let me have that.
Yeah. Like
there's a reason it's back there for 15 years, by the way.
The reason shops carry the cigars they do is because it's got to sell. Yeah. Otherwise, you are literally sitting on money that you've spent. You're not recouping any of it whatsoever.
I'm excited for that third one to come out because I love the idea of the trilogy. Because I tell you, in a shop like ours, at Tinderbox, or any shop that, gift like Father's Day, for birthdays, for, the holidays around the end of the year, like Christmas, Hanukkah, like when people come in buying cigars for other people that don't know anything about cigars, and then we just got this sampler in. This is pretty cool. If you notice, it's got Superfly, McFly, and this is kind of like 70s, 80s, 90s. I don't know if the person you're buying for is a movie buff. But they're great cigars, but it's kind of a fun package.
Yeah.
I can see that sale going, you know what? That is cool. He loves Back to the Future.
Yeah.
And there you go.
Well, honestly, half of the ones I sold in the beginning were because of the Back to the Future reference. I was at a shop.
That makes sense.
I was at a shop locally, and I'm trying to get them to buy the McFly. And they had a customer actually come in with a Back to the Future T-shirt on. And I said, see? And guess what?
I got a cigar for you.
But I think the staying power, we'll see if it catches on. And every cigar that comes out new, it's still one customer at a time.
It is.
And if they like the cigar, you don't have to get them to buy it every time they come in, but you want them to buy it every third time or every fourth time they come in, to where the stuff is moving.
Yeah.
Because the best cigar in your shop is the one that sells.
And and I will say that it's great when you get some of the people that are smoking, because this happens for those that aren't cigar smokers. I mean, there are people that smoke 4 or 5 cigars a day, and they're the ones that are like, they're on the road or they have time, like they have something that, whether they're retired, but we have like truck drivers, we have people that are like outside working, or they work from home, whatever it might be. But if they like the what's new and they smoke one, honestly, they don't care about the packaging.
No.
So you have those buyers as well. You're like, dude, that was really good. I didn't think it was going to be that good because, kind of gimmicky or whatever it might be, but they're going to buy it.
Yep.
They're going to buy it. Doesn't matter what brand it is, what packaging it is. It's just simply the cigar underneath all of that.
Right.
So,
well, and that's the bottom line. The packaging will sell it once.
Yeah.
And hopefully they'll like it and they'll come back to it. I think we've actually got, with COVID, I think we've actually got more people in the cigar industry smoking more cigars.
it's definitely a boom.
And I think that lends itself to some new product, because these new smokers will try the new product.
100%.
And they're not set on the legacy brands. They haven't built those habits to where that's all they're smoking.
They're having fun with it.
Yeah.
They're having fun with it, not just smoking the tried and true, which is nothing wrong with that either. But
no,
I think
there's a
that's where
place
you're
for
at.
everything.
Yeah.
And I think this gives the industry a little excitement.
Well, and I remember one time recently in the shop on a Sunday, there was a regular customer that came in. We were chatting, and they happened to ask me, because they were looking at the wall of cigars that the Tinderbox has, and they're like, how many of these cigars have you smoked? And so literally I started going through and looking at the blends, not looking at each individual size, but looking at all the blends. I started going through the wall, 2 that I haven't smoked.
Yeah.
Like, I'm one of those guys, but I think, and it's not just because I work in retail, because I was doing this even before I worked in retail. I'm one of those guys that I like to smoke different cigars. Yes, I have certain cigars that I will go back to on a regular basis, but I'm also one of those people, I love trying new cigars, because you never know. That new cigar might find a spot in your regular rotation.
That's it.
Yeah. That's right.
And that's all we want, is put it in your rotation.
That's right.
And hopefully it's moving enough to where shops keep it, because it's moving.
That's it. It's never like a personal thing. It's not, well, it is for some people, but it shouldn't be a personal thing. It should be about, that's why you're in the business, is to sell cigars, and then the customers, you're in it to enjoy the cigars. So everyone buys for different reasons. And, again, if you like your local brick and mortar, if you trust certain reviewers online, like websites, blogs, or whatever, reviewers, you'll find this at some point.
Yep.
This is the point of the show, Doug. I don't know if you're as familiar with this part. So we have the ratings. 10 is the best. Okay. So it's out of 10, 10 being the best. And you have the whiskey. So the Elijah Craig single barrel, private barrel from Jake's Cigar Bar in Lexington,
right,
Kentucky. And it's the Great Scott bottle. You have the cigar. We have the McFly by Oscar Valladares. And then the pairing. So it's 3 different ratings.
Okay.
10 being the best. So what do you give the Elijah Craig pick that we have here tonight?
I'd probably do this about a 9.6, I think, because I like it a lot.
Nice.
And it's not that expensive. I mean, honestly,
What was it?
I think it was like $70.
So for a
For a
single
barrel
barrel
pick,
pick, yeah, I mean, and 127 proof, that's very reasonable compared to what's on the market right now, for sure.
Honestly, the cigar, I think the cigar's about a 9.2, 9.1, 9.2. It would be it's in my rotation. I like it.
Good.
Yeah. But I'm also at the point where medium full is in my palate. That's really what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But the complexity of the cigar is what brings me back to it, especially on the retrohale.
Yeah.
But the pairing together, I mean, I think we're close to like 9.8.
Wow, those are high ratings right there, folks. I like it.
Well, it's my cigar.
I know you brought the bottle. Yeah. You knew what you were doing here. You knew what you were doing. Nate, how about you?
All right. So on the whiskey, I'm going to be 8.5 on the whiskey.
Okay.
Definitely enjoy this bottle. I love the fact that the nose has this apple and spice to it.
Why is it only 8.5? If you like it that much,
You,
you're just a tough reviewer.
He is.
I am.
We've deemed him and it's a little rough right now to say this, but the Russian judge.
Yeah.
Because before all this shit that is going on,
So I didn't pay you enough before we came on.
Honest reviews. That's what we look for.
Okay. Yes.
8.5 for me. It's a very good bottle. I definitely enjoy this bottle. It's got a lot of flavor to it. Ton of spice on the finish. little bit of sweetness. I wouldn't say it's necessarily the most balanced whiskey, but it's not trying to be balanced. There's not a whole lot of barrel proofs that are trying to be balanced.
I don't think so. Not at that proof.
8.5 for people that know me. It's a good bottle. I definitely do enjoy this bottle. On the cigar, I'm an 8 on the cigar, which again, for me, an 8 means definitely go out to your local brick and mortar and buy a few. Smoke this cigar. That is definitely a solid rating. The only issue I have on the cigar is I get so much spice on the cigar. It's hard for me to pick up some of the other flavors that are a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
But I think, with the flavor of the cigar, definitely top-notch construction, and the price point, like this is definitely a solid cigar. Go out and buy some. If it hits your flavor profile, buy a lot of them. It's an enjoyable smoke. I've liked a lot of the things that Oscar has come out with. Like you said, the Leaf by Oscar is not his. He just happens to make that cigar,
Right.
But he makes a darn good cigar. Alter Q is probably one of my favorites from Oscar. So definitely a solid smoke. Then on the pairing, I'm a 9.5 on the pairing.
Okay, I like
think. See, yeah. I think this is one of those pairings where the two of them go so well together. So when I do the whiskey and then the cigar, sometimes doing the cigar after the whiskey will bring out more spice, especially something from like a barrel proof. But doing cigar then whiskey, I get this floral note to it that kind of like a pine or a fir tree, that like a pine needle, that type of floral note, like what you would smell.
Is that a floral note?
Yeah,
could be. It is for Nate.
I guess it's more like a tree note.
Tree, flower. Yeah.
Flowers on those?
I think that's a good pairing. What really surprised me was I took a break from the whiskey for a little while and was just concentrating on the cigar. I smoked the cigar and then went back to the whiskey, and suddenly there was this caramel sweetness up front that I did not get just from the whiskey on its own.
Wow.
Going cigar, then whiskey had this really thick caramel note up front that I hadn't gotten before. So the fact that this cigar,
which we had talked about, Doug, in the beginning, yeah.
So the fact that this cigar brings out a little bit more sweetness in this whiskey, even at 127 proof, to make this taste a little sweeter, that's damn impressive.
Agreed. Yeah, we were talking about that caramel note and the sweetness. Like that's where I said caramel apple. That's what I was getting, and it could have been because of the sequence that you're talking about, the way I kind of had sampled it originally. Richie Riot's out there. You saw him.
Richie Riot said, "Boom."
So for me, the whiskey, I like this. I mean, this is I've been enjoying some Elijah Craig barrel picks that I've had recently from different bars and just Elijah Craig, some of the stuff they're doing. I like the normal small batch too for the the 30-some bucks or whatever.
I thought about bringing one of those on my way here.
Yeah.
Just because I didn't know we were going to have 2 bottles. so I stopped by the store to pick up something. I thought about buying a regular Elijah Craig and do it. Yeah.
You didn't. That was a good thought.
Well, I bought a bottle, but it wasn't Elijah Craig.
Elijah Craig. So with this, I'm going to give the bottle a 9. I think this is a great pick. I mean, and again, you say it's about 70 or so, right? Or 79 or 70.
That's like 70, I think is what I picked.
Yeah. So like, if you're like the $70 again for what you're getting, it's fun doing the barrel picks when you see them at different places, especially from brands that you like some of the stuff that they're putting out, right? So if you go to like a place like Jake's Cigar Bar,
right,
and this is available to purchase,
it is,
and you're an Elijah Craig fan, you're like me, you've enjoyed some of the barrel picks you've had at other establishments, definitely would be a buy on that one for $70. Even if you're just passing through town, you weren't planning on going to buy a bottle, you're like, oh shit, and they serve this too, right?
Yes.
So I would definitely get a glass of it at the bar. And then after that, I would probably be like, all right, yeah, I'll get a bottle.
And it may have gone up because it was so popular.
It could.
Yeah.
It could. So, 9 on that. The cigar, I like it. I mean, again, all-encompassing. The price is good. The construction's good. The marketing is bold move. It's a bold move. So, I mean, I like it. I think it might, again, we talked about that in detail. It could hinder the sales of it at first, or it could boom the sales. It's very specific to the brick and mortar or to the cigar smoker that is the shopper and why they buy for, different things. Do they have to try everything? Then they're going to buy it. Right. They may or may not like it, depending on their palate. It could deter people. It could really grab people's attention in a good way too.
Time will tell.
Yeah, 8.5. I think this is a good cigar. It's unique. To your point, Doug, it's a unique cigar. I think with this cigar, you do have to really have an open mind with it. I think when you gave it to us at the shop as a sample, just smoking it in the shop that and like a rep gives you a cigar, you try to have an open mind with it, but I immediately start thinking of the retail side of it on that side. When you have a person that you like come in, like a rep that you like, you trust them, they give you a cigar, you want to like it, but then all of a sudden immediately the wheels start turning. Will this sell? Right. It's not even about sometimes, unless you absolutely love the cigar and you're just going to buy it anyways. But a lot of times it's like, will my customers buy it? And that is where all the stuff we talk about. That's where the packaging comes in. Right. Is Oscar a strong enough name? Has anyone asked for it? All that stuff. So 8.5 on the cigar itself, from more objective. Do I enjoy smoking this as a cigar enthusiast? So I think 8.5 is a good mark on that. And I will say your mind works in very different ways. Everyone out there, if this had more traditional type of packaging, I don't know what my brain would think. You're trying to really be objective on what I have right now, which is not a band on it and just smoking the cigar for what it's worth. Right. But on this show, it's like you have to take into account all of this stuff. Absolutely. The pairing, I'm going to give a 9 as well. I agree with you guys. The pairing, it's good. It's surprisingly good based on just what's on paper in front of us here. Yeah. 127 proof. You got a McFly cigar with 80s packaging, and you got the Gray Scott. I love that. That's fun. I would give that that maybe knocks it up a little bit too. Maybe a 9.1 there.
If we had a DeLorean out here, it might help.
If you pulled up in a DeLorean in my neighborhood, 10s. Fucking 10s. And if it had a flux capacitor in the back, whether it was real or not, if it was making those lights move and all that stuff, and you have some dry ice, you open it up and just
that would be part of the package.
I once worked a concert that after we were done with the concert, there was a DeLorean convention in the parking lot after the concert. That's awesome. There was 10 guys that showed up in DeLoreans. I had to take a picture of it because my wife's got a cousin who just absolutely loves Back to the Future and DeLoreans.
Yeah. So yeah, that's what I'd rate those. I think this was a surprisingly very good pairing, and it's been a fun.
I've enjoyed
part one. I mean, this is, for you guys out there, I hope you guys get a chance to, obviously you're not all going to be able to get a Jake's Cigar Bar bottle. Because he doesn't ship, right? That's local.
Yeah, it's probably
so it's local. So if you're in that area, definitely check them out. Doug was showing me pictures of the spot too. It is gorgeous. It looks like a fun place.
How long have they been there?
He's been there a long time. This new shop has been. They're probably in their going on third year. They're working on their third year.
Because my wife and I used to take an extended weekend trip to Lexington because of the. It's now called the Land Rover, but it was a 3-day horse show that was down there. Yeah. So we used to go to Lexington every single year. I don't remember there being Jake's Cigar Bar.
He had one that wasn't a strip mall. This is a standalone building that he built.
It's gorgeous.
And I definitely need to go back.
And I will tell you, the personnel there are very attentive. He's got some award-winning bartenders there.
Yeah.
That
nice.
And it's just a nice place.
The pictures look great.
It's very comfortable, and even a newbie would feel comfortable there.
Yeah, that's great.
So
with that, we're going to roll into part 2 here. We're going to take a quick intermission for those that are watching live, or if you're watching after the fact, you can scroll through. The topic tonight is going to be Back in Time, staying with the Back to the Future.
To the future.
Do you have any more trivia questions for part 2, or no? Is that it?
I can probably think of some.
All right, we'll see what we got going on here.
I can think of some.
But as we round out, I want to thank our sponsors, Tinderbox at Easton in Columbus, Ohio. General admission tickets are still available to their Smoking 10 event on Saturday, March 19th. So definitely call or stop by the shop if you're traveling. It's on a Saturday this year, so that's fantastic. And we're going to have some great cigars and drinks and food and raffle prizes
and great
fun.
people.
Great people, even better people. Alternus USA, thank you. Congratulations again to Josh Bentley for the promotion. He's done a lot of work in getting us sponsored for the last few years. So hopefully we can continue to enjoy that sponsorship and those great cigars from those guys. BS Cigar Company, the gold and silver. The gold is Plasencia. The silver is Espinosa. Definitely all Nicaraguan, but they're definitely different blends. And I hope you guys enjoy those as well and try those at some point if you haven't already. And the last couple things, patreon.com/bourbon and BS podcast. If you guys want to be a monthly contributor to the show, and you will get some gear as well based on your Patreon level. And then Venmo's at Bourbon and BS. And last but not least, I know you got the sweatshirt on, Nate. That's the new sweatshirt.
Mm-hmm.
I love it.
Yeah,
black
great.
camo. You guys may not see it. It's black camo. It's kind of subtle.
Yeah.
Got the barrel logo on there. And then the shirt I'm wearing is also available on there. This is going to be available for another few weeks. This Kelly Green, this is going to be pour one more, light up another. We'll figure this out together. It's the podcast shirt. And this one, $10 of each purchase goes to St. Baldrick's Foundation, which is for childhood cancer research. So love that and love working with them. So, guys, thank you very much. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. Cheers, and stay tuned. You have an empty glass.
I know.
You got to put a little bit more in there.
Steve, you and I can still cheers.
Now you got to wait. It's Doug's first time.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Yeah.
It's fine.
I'm just not prepared. I thought I was.
You're
supposed to finish
prepared.
it.
You brought
Yeah.
60 cigars and 2 bottles of bourbon.
Yeah, you're good.
Cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday. We'll see you in part 2.
Thank you, guys.
We're clear. We're still live. But if you need to hit the head,
I'll hit the head, probably.
Nate, will you show him? Are you heading the head?
Yeah, I was going to go ahead too, but I can use accounts.
Okay, if you show him the hall.
What's that? Help yourself. That's what they're for.
So if you guys are listening live, we've got several listeners out there. I want to ask you to share, review, like all that stuff, or just, text me and tell me what you think of the show. I don't know. But thank you. Do you need help, sir? They can all see you. But if you guys have any questions, we're going to talk back in time. We'll get into that a little bit. I think it should be a more fun part 2 here, hopefully. Try to watch our rabbit holes. What did you guys think of while we're in intermission, what did you guys think of the pairing?
I'm actually enjoying it.
They can't hear you.
Oh, shit.
I know we're just hanging out, us guys, but
Us dudes. Is it on
say something.
Check.
which one is it?
I got it. The button. There's so many buttons on the switchboard. Boom.
So I was actually enjoying the pairing. For me, I think the bourbon's a little stronger than the cigar, just a tad. It's a little hotter, but you go back and forth, it kind of evens out when you get into the smoke. When I first started smoking the cigar, a bourbon was like, oh shit, this is gonna be too much. But as I got into the cigar, they kind of paired up. Got the meat and potatoes of the cigar. It's starting to pair up really well.
Nice.
What's that?
But the bourbon has some spice to it, though.
Bourbon does have some spice. I just really enjoyed it. Hey, Sean, will you grab Doug a bottle of water out of that fridge?
That was easier than I thought.
Yeah? Well, wait till you get to part 2. It has nothing to do with cigars.
Yeah, I've always been a fan of Elijah Craig.
You good
so-
for the long haul here?
I will, absolutely.
All right. Watch Nate's
If it's
luggage.
okay with you.
Of course.
I'm
Perfect.
I'm gonna
keep
try.
it down.
I was going to grab a Toro, yeah.
I'm gonna do a 60.
Oh, that's the 60.
I want a 60. You want the Toro?
I was gonna, yeah.
I'm gonna try the 60. I've never smoked the 60.
Here we go.
You've never smoked this 60?
I've never smoked. Well, I've never smoked this 60.
Okay.
What you need. Yeah.
Help yourself,
Yeah,
guys.
so chairs aren't the most comfortable, but they're grandma's kitchen chairs from back in the day.
I think it works.
Tell you
Yeah.
what, they've lasted.
On the-
These are from like the 60s or 70s.
I noticed from grabbing the Toro compared to the Churchill, like the Churchill leaves a little bit of room on the foot from the band.
Right.
But on the Toro, at
Hey,
least,
can you turn off their microphone? I turned it on. I don't know what they're saying. And yet, no comments.
the Toro, that secondary band goes all the way to the bottom of the cigar. And Steve, it had been so long since I used the bathroom downstairs. I forgot it was one of those you have to hold the handle.
Yeah, I need to fix. I mean, it works now, which is
works,
good.
yeah.
It's the adjustment because the arm hits the top.
Oh,
You know what I mean? So it doesn't fully engage, but it works.
I think the studio is awesome.
I'm glad you like it. Glad you like it. So that before we get into it, see that screen up there? That's a 100-inch screen that we do movies in here as well with the projector, which is fun.
And we had a Super Bowl party in here.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, Super Bowl, that was a good crowd. That was a good turnout. We had it on out here. So we're out here smoking, and there are people inside watching.
Yes.
Family room.
So every year, Steve hosts a Southie movie marathon. So it's movies all based around South Boston. And one year, the day before Southie, that screen arrived.
Mm-hmm.
And back then, Steve and I were working Saturday nights together, and we used to hang out at the store
Tony's losing shit.
after hours.
Poor guy.
And we'd watch TV, smoke a couple cigars, have a pour or two. And that arrived, and he's like, well, I mean, yeah, if you want to show up early tomorrow and help me hang the screen. I was like, well, instead of sitting at the shop watching TV tonight, let's go back to your house after we close up the store. We'll go hang it up tonight. So that way it's ready to go.
Test it out. Smoke a cigar. It's good.
So this is the BS portion.
This is the Beyond the BS.
Beyond the BS. This is kind of like
Goes anywhere. Really.
That group that's hanging out in a cigar shop, just solving the world's problems, and they have a couple drinks and forget how they did it.
One thing I didn't say is I think some of the reason you're seeing new blends now from the legacy brands is because the FDA is lightened up.
Yeah.
So
for now.
Yeah, for now.
Yeah.
For now.
Yeah.
Hopefully we can make it 3 more years at least without them really cracking down and just focusing on flavored gas station stuff.
I get a whole lot more grassy notes
especially on the initial light up.
Yeah.
Well, and that's an the shaggy foot, right? Exposed foot. Okay.
When I was going to say earlier to something Doug had mentioned, this is just bonus content for the people that are still with us live.
We'll start in a minute then.
When we were talking about, getting this in the hand of retailers, and like sometimes you rely on the retailers educating customers on the cigar. Part of that is because of FDA regulations. It used to be, especially like when I was a rep, you could walk into a cigar shop and just hand customers a cigar to try. As
long as the retailer's okay with that.
Yeah, I only had one shop in 200 accounts. I had one shop that was like, "Don't ever hand a customer a free cigar." Like, cool, gotcha.
I always ask the shop owner first.
You have to
always.
But you would hand customers a cigar, and that was a way to put a new blend or something in their hands, and they'd be able to smoke it. Now you can't do that. So, but they'll give them to the staff that works at a brick and mortar store. So that staff is going to smoke.
Got to get it in the hands of someone.
Yeah, the staff's going to smoke them, and if the staff likes them, then they're going to recommend it to customers.
And I got to tell you, as a rep, you want to get the staff on your side.
Oh yeah,
because
they're going to push your product.
If you don't give enough cigars for the staff, then they don't know what to push. When I was at Corona, the guys that came in and made sure the staff had cigars, you wanted to push their stuff.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you don't take into account the fact that these are the guys that are actually selling cigars, you're never going to get the stuff going.
You do, and obviously you need to know who writes the checks or whatever. Whose name's on the credit card. That's the most important one. But I mean, if you have a staff, I mean that's great. You ask for you ask like, so how many guys are working today?
Yeah.
Like I know you hand out too. Sometimes you leave more, like who's working tonight type thing. It's like, look at these in there. Yeah.
Like obviously you and Brian are gonna get sticks because you guys are the decision makers.
He's the decision maker.
He's the one that writes the check, but he respects your palate enough to where if he likes your recommendation, he'll write that.
If he's leaning one way, he'll hope that I'm leaning that way.
Yeah.
If he's on the fence on something.
But he doesn't give a shit what I think about a cigar.
Oh. Will you move that bottle? Because the glare on
bottle?
that
box. The box.
Yeah. Well, no, the other one. The one holding the box.
No, this is the one. This is going to create
move that one. No, it's
you have to put behind that box in order to take away the glare. This is this box.
Oh shit.
Yeah. But
fucking smoke and mirrors there, man.
So he said the retail on this blend is going to be in like that $9 to $11 range.
Right. That's probably 9 to 12.
Yeah. So depend on your state's taxes.
Three sizes.
3 sizes.
Just these 3. No Robusto.
No Robusto.
No Robusto.
They came out with a Toro, Churchill, and
you don't have room for the bands on a Robusto or
Oh,
Corona.
that's true. That's
They'd be hanging off.
you would only have the secondary band.
It would be fucking capped to. Oh, I didn't notice that a shaggy foot. It was covered.
Good point.
You can't do it.
Good point.
You can't do it.
Good looking out, Steve.
All right. You guys ready?
Yep.
Thank you, Shannon. Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is episode 211. We are Beyond the BS part 2 here. We are still enjoying the Superfly.
No, McFly.
Jesus, McFly.
McFly.
All right, I'm going to try that again. This is live, but I can do it second take that early in the show.
That's right.
Welcome back to the Bourbon and BS podcast, everyone. This is Beyond the BS part 2 for episode 211. We are still enjoying the McFly from Oscar Valladares. Thank you to Doug Sifford, who's joining us tonight. So if you have not listened to part 1 and you're on the audio, make sure you click back, listen to what we're talking about with the McFly and also the Elijah Craig single barrel, private barrel by Jake's Cigar Bar in Lexington, Kentucky. This is the Great Scott pick, which is all encompassing, right? We've seen some.
And just so you know, the boxes were sent from the factory for the podcast.
Wow. Oh, wow.
So
that's amazing. So thank you, everyone, with Oscar Valladares and the team there. Like I said, part 1, we go over that and the bottle as well, how they paired, some information about the cigar, the marketing behind it, the idea behind it. There's also the idea of a third release, Superfly, McFly, and that's 70s, 80s, and there might be a 90s. I'm still racking my brain. So if I'm
trilogy,
if I'm just like looking off thinking, that's what I'm thinking about, or I'm drunk.
Not yet.
Or it could be both, honestly. I'm sitting there. So all of a sudden I just slammed my hand out. I got it.
You've come up with some great ideas while you've been drinking.
I have. Like the shirt I'm wearing, which if you guys want to go to, good segue. Buyjack.com. Let me put it up on the screen again. Let's see here. My eyes aren't that good. You're right. Buyjack.com/bourbonbs. That's going to be where you go for the shirts. The people at Buyjack have been fantastic launching this line for us. Nate's wearing the hoodie there. That's one of the hoodies available. It's the Bourbon and BS Barrelhead hoodie, black camo. There's also the BS Cigar Company stuff on there, a black hoodie and a blue hoodie. I've got this podcast shirt on, the Pour One More, Light Up Another. We'll figure this out together. In the green, this is going to be a limited edition one. This is $30. $10 of that goes towards St. Baldrick's Foundation, which is Childhood Cancer Research Foundation. There's also other colors of that shirt, and then some other shirts out there as well. So we appreciate that support. There's been a great reception of that. I know a lot of people have been buying a lot of those products. There's some 3/4 sleeves, like baseball tees with the BS stuff. And I've got some stuff coming out here, kind of like just a little bit at a time. You know what I mean? I don't want to have all the options out there. So been working with John over there, and he's been fantastic to work with and working through all the kinks. So check that out. Patreon.com/bourbonandbs podcast. That's how you guys can contribute. You will get a shirt based on how you contribute to the show on that as well, based on the timing if you want to do it that way, or Venmo at Bourbon and BS. And thanks to Tinderbox at Easton, Columbus, Ohio. The Smoking 10 event is coming up March 19th. That's Saturday, March 19th. General admission tickets are still available. However, the VIPs, unfortunately, are sold out for those that wanted that. We sold those out, 150 tickets strong there. So that was fantastic. Again, good reception. Thank you very much. And then also thank you to Altus USA for the continued support, and also BS Cigar Company. The gold and silver are available. If you come to the Smoking 10 event, you want to stock up, that might be a good day to stock up on BS cigars as well.
Said you have a good voice. His wife
and a
said
face
you have
for
a
radio.
voice.
Yeah, well, I've heard that my whole life. My mom's been telling me that for years. And for those that know Dorothy Crane, she is recovering well from her spill. So
good.
No surgery needed.
Oh, really?
Shoulder's healing on its own right now. So yeah. So
Awesome.
Thanks to everyone that did reach out about Dorothy Crane. She's a saint, and we hope that she recovers very quickly. So this is Beyond the BS. So Doug, I know you've listened to the show. I didn't really know what to do with this one, but I kind of wanted to keep it themed with what we're doing tonight. The Great Scott bottle, the McFly. So we are talking back in time. I normally will just lay it all out there, and I do have ideas. I put it in the description, but Nate, what do you think when you think of back in time? He's not ready for this.
Oh shit! What the hell?
Curveball. Yeah, Uncle Rico. Never wish you'd go back.
Reliving the glory days.
Okay.
No, when you first said that before we went live, there was a movie I recently watched where one of the characters says a phrase and goes, "There was a time," and that kind of popped in my head. Like there was a time where things were a little different.
Yeah.
You did things differently. You interacted with people differently. Like society was different. Like there was a time.
Yeah.
And he said it to a guy who was half asleep, and the guy's like, "Yeah," and he says whatever the time was on his watch. He's like, "Yeah, I didn't ask you what the time was. I said there was a time."
Yeah.
Fucking, and just anyone who knows the movie, bonus points to you if you can get it off that reference.
I don't know that. I'm sure you have it on DVD though.
I don't.
It's a shame.
I know, but I really enjoy that movie. I watched it the other night. Jess made it about 10 minutes, and she's like, "Yeah, nope."
Sounds great.
Yeah, great movie. Great movie.
Yeah, I'll ask Jess.
Great cast.
You'll have to tell us at some point.
What was the quote?
There was a time.
Okay.
That's the only quote.
I feel like you know it.
So, Doug, how about you back in time? You have any ideas?
You know, I worked for my dad at a grocery store. I remember having 19 cents a gallon gas.
Yeah.
It was like they'd have gas wars. It would be like 26 cents normally. They'd have gas wars. It'd go down to 19 cents a gallon. And in light of everything that's going on, everything's gone up, but, you know, it's all relative to what your pay structure is and stuff.
Yeah.
And, you know, now gas is like, I went to Atlanta this weekend and we filled up at a Sam's Club on Thursday before. It was $3.13 a gallon.
Oh.
Okay. We came back on Monday. It was $3.64. I've never seen stuff going up as fast as it's going up now. I want to go back to a time where we actually had a little more consistency.
Yeah.
And we had people that can you say give a shit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you just did. So, I mean,
You
we don't have like a sensory and that's like a 5-second delay. That's
you,
beeping it out.
You want to get back to a time where people cared about people.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, it's simple, but just show general kindness to everybody and care about your fellow American. And if we could get our government to do that, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in. Honestly,
it's been a few years.
I think you see the cycles, right? That's what's so interesting. What I see, I agree with what you're saying. You know, I think this was a weird 2+ years now that, you know, you've seen the way that people react, and we've done the podcast the entire way through it. Really, we started going remote. That's why we started using this service, StreamYard, where we can get people on the feed. You know, even Nate was at his house. I was in the garage by myself instead of having people here next to me in the audience, all that stuff. I was just, you know, I'd set it up all here and get everyone online, and then we'd go. You saw people that do care about people, and I think genuinely most people, especially in America, they do at their core, they care about people, or at least they think they care about people. It's their actions that's what's so difficult to see.
They then went out and bought every package of toilet paper.
We talked about that in depth. It was like, you know, like, oh, I care about everyone. Let's all stay home. And, you know, we're dealing with something we've never seen, we don't know about, and all this stuff. And you had all that stuff. And it's like, I care about my fellow man. I don't want to get anyone sick, but fuck you. I'm going to absolutely tear through this Costco and buy 96 rolls of toilet paper, even though I have 84 left. You know what I mean?
Well, I think you still see that. I mean, you do the refugees from Ukraine, and the people in Romania, and people they're at the train station with stuff to help them. Yeah. So you're still seeing that.
That's what I mean. There is a core there that I think that most people, I like to think most people care about each other. I think that no matter what the time is, or what the date is, or where you're at in life, there is a bit of that glory days thing that, you know, you kind of, you know, Uncle Rico thing, you know, it's like, I wish I could go back. As you get older, everyone thinks that, like, oh, back when I was younger, gas was this, or back in my day, we used to, you know, go out and play in the neighborhood. If you had the opportunity to live in a neighborhood that was, you know, safe, even not safe areas, the kids would go out and they would play, they would do stuff. I mean, crime levels aside, I mean, there are some of those consistencies. We have gone to a point now where you talk about like Back to the Future stuff, and Back to the Future 2, is all about the future.
Right.
And, it's funny to see some of those thoughts even back in the 80s, what they thought would be like pretty much today. We've already passed where they were at, but like pretty much today, like they have this envision. But I think that the humans are very consistent. There's like that cycle, history repeats itself all the time. Just in this country alone, history repeats itself with, presidents and the political regimes that kind of go through even our country. There's been the ebbs and flows. There's always this back and forth, batting it back on whatever path. And it's like, it goes too far to the one side. And now all of a sudden it comes back a little bit. It goes back to the other side. And it's like this ping pong ball effect, because a lot of the times I think the people in charge, they're more extremists. Like, you can't get into an office like you're talking about, like with the government. You can't get elected for most positions unless you're one extreme or the other.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't agree. You can't be a moderate and make it on the big stage. You just can't.
Well, I think people as a whole, like you said,
yeah,
if we could get to just the people in the countries that we're at odds with, the people would agree, because they all want the same thing. They want to be able to get through life, feed their family and raise their kids.
Yeah.
Everybody's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
And the problem is you get government involved and they get in the way of the people.
There becomes too many steps and too much extra shit.
Yeah.
There's a lot of moving parts when you get the bigger and wider scopes, but just even in this stuff. So we're smoking the McFly right now. And I was saying something about, the 80s being, back in time. That is my childhood. And it's amazing. I want to bring up the fact that, so I have a brother that's 2 years older than me, and he has 2 kids. And I kid you not that my 17-year-old niece is a huge Sylvester Stallone fan, huge Arnold Schwarzenegger fan, loves Star Wars, loves, it was amazing that if you guys noticed, Doug, do you have any kids?
Yeah, 2.
How old are they?
One will be 40 this year.
Okay.
One will be 43.
So about the same age as my brother and I.
Yeah.
But it's amazing that you saw this. Do they have kids? Do you have grandkids?
Yeah,
5. So it's like you saw this, like my brother, is like the repeating itself.
Yeah.
Like all the people that were born kind of in my era, right? In like the late 70s and early 80s. All of this stuff, all these ideas for stuff, like they won't do another Back to the Future, first of all, because is it Zemeckis? We were talking about, it's not Spielberg, is it Zemeckis that did that? But they will not allow a remake of Back to the Future. They will not do it. They will not. That person, I think, has come out and said, no, the rights are off limits. But you saw a lot of stuff, like Rocky's been, like Sylvester Stallone's been doing Rocky movies like basically for 80 years. You know what I mean? But I'm just saying, like all the toys, it was like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles came back. Transformers came back. Power Rangers, I think, they even came back. That was even like the 90s. But it's like, well, they tried. They tried to.
It's a shitty movie.
I'm just saying. But I mean, like a lot of that stuff. I mean, like these, like it's the fashion repeats itself, history repeats itself, all this stuff repeats itself.
Cars too, the Charger, the Challenger,
Cars,
Camaro, Mustang.
But
like they've kind of gone back to some of those more muscle car
Muscle
roots.
cars.
But I think one of the reasons why we've seen like Transformers and some of those movie series and some of the cars make a revival is the people that grew up with them when they were younger now are older and have disposable income, and they want to relive those days. And now companies saw that and they're like, cool, we're going to make a car that you used to have.
Who's working for those companies?
Yeah,
The younger people at that generation. Now they're older and they're like,
the key, I think, though, is the 60s and 70s music you guys have embraced.
there we go.
You guys have embraced.
I've always been.
Now we got the age difference going up.
I've
I like how you're
always-
talking like Nate and I, like we're the youth. Like I'm
You
talking about
are.
like the teenagers
Yeah.
and like my niece and nephew, and he's saying, "You guys."
I've always
but
I've always been a 60s and 70s rock.
even,
That's,
even the younger kids like the 60s and 70s music.
Yeah.
And
yeah,
that's
because of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Great soundtrack.
but I mean
It was a
that's
great soundtrack.
that's one thing that I think changed. You had music from the 40s and 50s we didn't embrace that as children of the 60s and 70s.
Right.
You guys, the guys that are 20 years younger than me, embrace the 60s and 70s music.
Well, there's a lot of
and
parallels.
it still has an influence.
It does. And it's always, people like, it's funny as you get older too. It's like whatever the kids are listening to now. It's what's that?
These days, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's like you don't like it. It doesn't like. I was trying to find like a new like workout playlist, and I'm like Spotify, Apple Music, and I'm like going off of theirs, and I'm like, geez, like this is terrible. And then I found like a throwback like hip hop one. Now you know you're old. You know what I mean?
It was all New Kids on the Block.
Now I will say there's some consistency. I went to the dentist on Monday, and so if you guys aren't in like wherever you're at, you have this kind of radio station, but in Columbus, Ohio, and the surrounding areas, it's Sunny 95. It's like that's what we moved here in '87. That's what my mom would always listen to in the car. And so it's like at that time though, I grew up with oldies, which is like the the 50s, 60s, and a little bit of 70s. You know what I mean? But it's more or less. I swear to God, I think Sunny 95 has had. They add to it, but they've had the same playlist. I'm in the dentist's office, and I'm just like sitting there while she's cleaning all the tobacco stain off my teeth and all that stuff. So I was in there for a minute, and I can barely hear this in the background. I'm like, I'm pretty sure this was playing like when I was in here when I was 14. And it's like, and then the radio, I thought it was like Muzak. No, it's like, and Sunny 95 coming to you this afternoon. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, it sucks when you're
There's a little bit of consistency there, but I like that.
It sucks when you're listening to an oldie station, they start playing music from the 90s. You're like, damn it.
Well, I think that some of like, especially the hip hop, some of that stuff in this,
Charlie says it was Robert Zemeckis and Bob Gale who wrote Back to the Future.
Stevie, you're right. Robert
Zemeckis would not allow this to happen. But it's funny when they started sampling. This has been going on since the 80s, 90s, and all that stuff. They started sampling older tracks that then you hear the 70s version, the original, or the 60s version original, and you're like, oh, I thought that was Puff Daddy's, own thing, or whatever. You know what I mean? It was like they were doing that forever. Sean, what do you got?
No, I just came across this thing. I don't know when it was, a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago on Facebook. They're reselling the Evel Knievel motorcycle that you rev up. You remember that thing?
Talk about the little toy?
Yeah.
And take off.
And you could, and like now they're showing these kids that are like now doing it, and they're just like they're like the adults are like, oh my God, and the kids are like, just stupid. You know, you got drones you can fly around now, let alone have a little fucking motorcycle flying. But to me, that was nostalgic. I mean, I remember getting those as a kid, and I couldn't wait to get it home and rev it up. And
so what helped it, but also hurt it for a lot of the American population is hipsters. They started really liking all this, like old, like vinyl made a comeback, you know what I mean? All this stuff. And it was like cool to like, to like the older stuff, but then it was like too cool. And it was like the subculture. It's like it never really passed.
What's really cool, there's a store in Short North in Columbus. I forget the name of it, but it's all old school toys. But it is like stepping back in time because they've got shit that's like when we were kids. What's that called? I know.
Take Shannon's son there all the time.
Wait, what's going on?
It was a toy store. There's a toy store in the Short North. It's like it's all old school toys.
Thrift store.
No, it's not thrift.
No, that's a thrift store.
Well, it's a thrift store for toys, but they don't call it that. It's something else. But it's like
what do they call it now?
Yeah, but they've got like the Stretch Armstrong and shit like that like, and they're selling for a lot of money too because people want it, but it's pretty cool. I mean, it is literally like
it's people with disposable incomes that had it when they were a kid and want to live it.
Yeah, it is neat though. It's kind of cool.
And then it ends up, and what do you do with it in your house?
The dog gets hold of it.
I didn't buy anything. I just was just looking at them.
We had a marble game that my dad bought me at the barber shop he went to. And it was one of those things where the marbles go down back and forth.
Yeah.
I've got a grandson that's 10 down to one that will turn 1 in April, and they all like this marble game and you can put marbles up there, you race them and whatever, but it keeps them entertained and they enjoy it. But they for the most part go back to their video games, and I think that video game, which is not as interactive as some of the stuff we did as kids, is probably a detriment.
So they've made video games to speak on that. Like again, my brother who has 2 kids, 17, I think 11 is Evan. I know he's not watching, so forgive me. But because I should know exact age. But they're fantastic, and they do like a lot of things that we liked as kids. And video games is one of my brother actually, also still at 43. He still plays video games, but he plays online and social interaction with that. I will say that I think we're seeing a little bit of it. I don't know how the staying power there, but after the last 2 years, the hands-on stuff and actual interaction with people, not just online, because people got burnt out online. Even kids got burnt out online. They want to be around people again. So like, I imagine like recess is probably killer these days now that everything's opened back up. Like it's probably like old school. You know, we used to play like Foursquare and tetherball and all that stuff. Is like you don't go out. We didn't have the
kickball.
Yeah, you didn't have like everyone like like a 10-year-old has an iPhone.
Can't have monkey bars now.
Shannon.
You're talking about the video games. You think about the evolution from when we were kids, when Atari hit the Pong and all those.
What Atari did you have? I think we were in the minority. We had the 5200, which was not the 2600.
I had whatever the original was. So
That's the 2600. We had the 5200, which had like an actual like numeric keypad on there too. It was a bigger controller.
Yeah,
it never really took off. I think it was a timing thing. We also had a Commodore.
I got it for Christmas one year, and I remember sitting there playing Pong. It was like the greatest thing ever. It was so interactive, and you fast forward to now, and the games are so involved and online, and you're playing with people from across the world, and the evolution's been mind-blowing.
So where's the holograms though?
They're coming.
That's what they've been saying since like Back to the Future.
Yeah, since the 80s.
Well,
that was like supposed to be the thing, is like you'd like, instead of like having a 8K TV or whatever that looks real, like you'd have it like in your living room.
The new trend is the Oculus.
Yeah, Oculus,
virtual
reality.
That stuff is going
20, 30 years later, they finally got something working on that.
Yeah.
Well, I remember several years ago for Christmas, my wife actually found for me an old school Nintendo, an original Nintendo Entertainment System, which I had when I was a kid. And
I like you called it by the full name.
I happened to have
Nintendo Entertainment System, the NES.
Well, you had the NES, the
Super Nintendo, Super NES.
So, but I remember going out and I found an old Nintendo game, and it was a very specific game that I wanted because it was called Jackal.
I thought you say Joust.
Not Joust. It's called
Big
Jackal.
Contra fan. That's why I wanted Nintendo. Contra was like neighbor had it. I'm like,
The reason I got that is back in the 90s when my parents were, this was after my parents had split. One of the things that happened every week, my dad would get off work, pick me up from church. We'd go to Taco Bell, and then we'd go back to my house, and the two of us would play Jackal. And so my wife bought that for me, so that way my dad could come over
and play Jackal.
And my dad and I could play Jackal again like we did 30 years ago.
You have to blow on the cartridge?
Yes.
Yeah. Dust gets in there.
Or you take a cotton swab and
we just like butane lighters. You just blow on that thing, if there's like dust in it, fixes it.
Yeah, but the whole reason why that was so amazing as a gift was some of the happiest memories I have as a kid was playing that game with my dad after eating Taco Bell, which could do with or without nowadays. But like I actually told my dad, I was like, I have a Nintendo. I have Jackal. I want you to come over to the house. We'll get Taco Bell if you want to. Come over to the house. I want to play Jackal with you.
Now you just crack a bottle of bourbon.
Exactly. Now we crack a bottle of bourbon, then we go outside and have a cigar.
If you had a setup like outside, you're like playing.
Oh, with a
Jackal.
projector on the side of the house or something. Oh, absolutely. But no, it was to relive those days. Why? Because those days back in that time were such enjoyable moments that we still have as adults. Like sometimes not as much stuff happens today. We don't think about it. We don't think about stuff that we do today being a fond memory 20, 30 years from now. We do remember the fond memories from 20, 30 years ago. And so
You say memories from 20 years from now?
You're creating
what
memories.
what I'm saying is
from the
what I'm
future.
saying is there may be things that we do today
I know.
that we don't realize are going to be
I
a
got
fond
you.
memory in the future.
Yeah.
So right now we just go by the fond memories that we have.
Well, I think so. I put it up on the screen there. Tim Dodge says, let's see. I think the reason we're seeing movies being recycled is because the people in Hollywood who makes them lack imagination and creativity. That is like a common, I guess, thought from a lot of people. And there could be some credibility to that. I don't think you're wrong, Tim. I also think that with that question or with that comment, it's pretty brilliant. Not only do I see like Transformers, think what you will about like Michael Bay and all what he does and who he is, whatever, but you couldn't make you can make an animated Transformers because you could do all that stuff, but you couldn't do like Star Wars was amazing with like what they did with the models and how they incorporated that. You couldn't do that with a model and do basically like a claymation type of a thing where it's like this thing is transforming piece by piece. You probably could, but it would look terrible. The CGI, like the computer effects are there that you wish they would have been there when they came up with all this stuff, right? Where the imagination was taking it there. Some of the books, that they made movies out of that with all the special effects, Lord of the Rings and stuff like that. You could make them back in the 80s. Like, I remember Willow.
Yes, I just watched that this week.
So, really?
Willow? Yeah. With Val Kilmer? Yeah. I just watched it over the weekend.
I feel like you're the only person that probably watched it. It's a great movie. I'm not making fun of you. I did not expect you to say that. I think, though, that there is what you're talking about, like your dad and you playing Jackal, is you have this, the not only is there the capabilities to do some of the things that you wish you could have done back in the 80s from a special effects standpoint, but there is the fact that those people that are making it, they were younger when this stuff was out. They have an identity to it. It's fun to be able to, speaking about like the music earlier, about how like the kids and the adults don't really have the same taste in music. If you can have kids like the same stuff that you, who are now the parents, based on demographics and age, that you can identify with, and you can actually want to go to a movie and they want to go to a movie. I love that. I love the fact that, my niece and nephew like the same things that my brother and I liked back in the day. But as a parent for him, I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine the joy that he has that this is available, as opposed to him trying to force himself to like the Harry Potter movies were big, with people that are in their like 20s, maybe early 30s right now. And I remember when someone was like, "Oh, you've never seen the Harry Potters?" I'm like, no, like when they came out, I was in college, and I'm not going to go. Like, I have no interest in watching a kid wizard movie. You know what I mean? Like, there's no identity. And like, even like with like parents at that time, that like they may have read some of the books that were coming out before that, but it's like, these are things that there is the retro, the back in time, like the retro kind of ideas that they're remaking again. And some of them were pulled off really well, that not only do the parents like them, but the kids love them. I mean, you look at the same thing like Marvel. Like, you don't have to be a comic book nerd, but it's like a lot of like older people, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, they love the Marvel movies, and the kids see them, and it's like a totally different viewpoint. But the next Marvel movie comes out, the whole family's going. The whole family. The Star Wars movies came out, the whole family's going, because the parents love it, and the kids, because the parents love it, they told them about it, but they pulled it off in a way that they drew in. Like, it doesn't matter about the old ones. They want to see the old ones. They're not as good as, like, for them, it's like they're not as good as the new ones. And the older parents, the older people are like, the new ones aren't as good as the old ones, because you're living back in that time and how it affected you as a kid. Shannon?
Oh, you were saying Transformers. One of my clients, he just shipped off last week. He got hired on by a major motion picture house that they're filming a new Transformers in Canada right now. He was going up to work on the CGI part of it. I was like, holy crap, dude. So there's another Transformers coming out. Don't know when, but it's...
Oh, my gosh. That franchise
is Mock in it?
What's that?
Mock Wahlberg.
Mock.
Yeah, I don't know who's all going to be in it, but he was telling me a little bit about it.
They should do a Transformer in Boston.
Boston.
Mock, you know.
You get.
Is there enough stuff in Boston to where if they were to start destroying stuff, people would be like, maybe we should stop, or they'd be like, okay, it's Boston.
No, they should. No, Boston's beautiful.
I was at an event. One thing tying in cigars to this, you've got guys that are growing up smoking cigars with their dad, and that is a bonding experience for those guys. And I was at an event Tuesday night, and you had a dad and his son picking out cigars together, and they're going to go out and smoke together. Awesome. And honestly, the cigar community is actually kind of like our community was years ago, because we relate to one another regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
And when you're smoking a cigar together, you have something in common, and it bonds you, and we can solve the world's problems if we just smoke some more cigars.
That's what we do on part 2. It's Beyond the BS here.
Well, I remember when I was a kid, my dad used to smoke some of the gas station cigars, and I remember I hated it so bad. At one point, I took the pack of cigars and actually snapped them. Got my ass whooped. Oh yeah. I got my ass whooped for breaking a 30-cent cigar. But no, then sure enough, I go off to college. In my junior year of college, I pick up smoking cigars. And the first time I ever went into a cigar shop for Christmas, I bought 8 cigars. I bought 4 pairs. It was 4 for my dad, the same 4 for me.
Yeah.
And I gave those to my dad for Christmas. And it was the first time I ever bought my dad cigars. And that night for his Christmas party, he and I were smoking the same cigars, and we were smoking them together. And ever since then, I got him into smoking premium handmade cigars.
Have you ever played Jackal while smoking cigars with your dad?
No, because I can't smoke in my basement.
All right, we'll figure it out. Jesus.
Some of my fondest memories growing up with my dad, he was a big cigar smoker. He wasn't into the high level stuff. I don't know if you remember these King Edward cigars.
Oh yeah. My dad smoked cherry blends.
So I would always, for his birthday and for Christmas, a little tyke, I'd go out and buy him a box. My mom would buy it, but I was
going to say.
I looked older then, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that beard then.
No, back then you could just go to the store with a note from your parents.
I know.
And I always regret, because as I started getting into the cigars, as he got older and his health, he got out of smoking them. So we never got to enjoy them. But some of my fondest memories are me and him fishing out on Lake Erie with the cigar hanging out of his mouth, reeling in, perch and walleye. And everybody remembers my dad by his cigar. Like, oh, how's Pops and his cigars doing?
Yeah.
That's how they remembered him by.
That was like my grandfather with pipes, right? So he smoked cigars. We didn't know he smoked cigars as grandkids. But when he had passed and my grandmother was still living, and we went and cleaned out the office, my grandfather's office, where he had shoe boxes just all over, like in the closet, of just pipes, right? So the humidor I have inside, the Dunhill humidor, was actually my grandfather's humidor, but it was always just sitting back on a shelf with something on top of it. Kid you not, I think it was the El Producto. Yeah, El Producto. There were some of those in the humidor still. Quest Rays were in there that were like the not 858s, it was like 898s or whatever they called them, but they were still in there, whatever. I tried to rejuvenate them, but anyways, I got that, and I got a couple of the pipes. He had probably close to 200 pipes in that office.
Wow, damn,
ridiculous. He traveled for business a lot, and people would give him gifts, and some were never used. And he had some up on like pipe stands and shelves and stuff like that. But I'm talking like shoe boxes. You open up a shoe box, more pipes. It's like 15 pipes in the shoebox or whatever. So I remember I got those, and it's funny, like the back in time, you think about some of this stuff and the nostalgic aspect of it. So for my grandmother's 89th birthday, we went out to Vegas, and she lived past 94. But like her 89th, we were going to go out for her 90th birthday because she loved playing slots and all that stuff on in Chicago, like the riverboats and that stuff. So we went out there, whatever, and I brought. He always smoked mixture number 79. If you ever heard of that, pipe tobacco. And so luckily, it was before I was working at the Tinderbox, but sure enough, they had 3 little boxes. I still have, I think, 2 inside. They're probably terrible right now. But they had 3 boxes, like these small boxes of mixture number 79. And for the holidays, like every Christmas, it's like, oh, what are we getting Grandpa Zider? Tub of mixture 79. So in his later years, he had these amigos. It was like a little scooter thing, one on the first floor, chairlift up to the second floor, another amigo up top, right? And as kids, we always wanted to ride the amigos and drive them and all that stuff. And after he passed away, we did get a chance to do it. They were like 3 miles an hour.
You were hauling ass.
We'd be on the sidewalk and we're like, yeah. But anyways, so we go out to Vegas, and I had brought my pipe, one of his pipes that I have actually in my locker at the shop, and it's a Dunhill pipe as well. So I brought it out to Vegas, and I remember we were sitting out there, my Aunt Gwen, and then also my grandmother was out there, my mom was out there, and I think my Aunt Beth was out there. I don't think my Uncle Bill was out there. But anyways, that morning, I brought the pipe out and some of the mixture number 79. I kid you not, like my Aunt Gwen started tearing up. It's because that was something that it was like, that's like, besides everything else my grandfather had done and how great of a person he was, I lit that up. They all smelled it, and they knew I was smoking his pipe, because no one else in the family smokes cigars or pipe or anything like that. So the fact that like my grandma gave me 5 pipes or whatever because she knew I was into cigars and stuff, I lit that up, and just to see everyone's face. We're at the Flamingo where we stayed, and see everyone's face kind of just transform, like to oh my God. Like my Aunt Gwen's not, I mean, she married into the family. Like she was, good friends with my mom, married my Uncle Bill, who was the son, was my mom's brother. And just to see her, of all people, was the first one to like start tearing up. And just like think about all these amazing times, and like at the house, and like, we had Christmas. Even when we moved to Ohio, we would travel back to Chicago for Christmas. And it was at grandma's house. You know what I mean? It was like all the grandkids on that side. And so it was just a fantastic type of example. I think that smell, and just to be able to almost relive some of that stuff. It's not necessarily the glory days, but the fond memories of that.
Well, how many times do we get customers walk in the tinderbox, especially ladies, that they just walk in the first few feet of the store, they smell, and there's half a dozen, 10 guys in the shop, whatever, smoking cigars. No one's smoking a pipe, or not typically, but right. They just walk in, they smell like, this reminds me of my dad or my grandfather, my
uncle, my whatever.
It reminds them of somebody, even though they don't enjoy that same habit. It reminds them of someone, and literally they will walk in a few feet into the store, take a big breath in, get that smell, and then walk right back out the store. Like they're not coming in to buy anything. Yeah. It's just reliving those memories that they have of that person.
What do you guys think? I mean, like, so there is this Back in Time. I love it. Like, you guys saw, like, did everyone watch Stranger Things? I watched that when I had COVID.
Yeah.
No, I didn't. So, it takes place in the 80s, and it's a sci-fi thing. So I don't know if you're into sci-fi, Doug, but it's like, it was done really well. Some of these time pieces that people are like putting out in the movies or the series and stuff like that, they do so much into the production. They really transport you back in time. I look at that. I love that stuff. It's so interesting to me how quickly people get caught up in everyday life, that those memories are so impactful that less people seek it out. When times were simpler, like you were talking about gas prices.
Yeah.
Like as much as you miss the 19 cents a gallon, I mean, Doug, unless you get into, a different industry or into politics or whatever you may not have as big of an impact on getting back to that point.
True. And
we'd all would love for tomorrow we wake up and the Shell station's got 19 cents a gallon on there. I'm not, but I love living in the present. I love like focusing on your future and all that stuff. But I think some of those smiles you get and that good feeling, like talking about like my grandfather's pipe tobacco. Is there a way that we can get more active on trying to bring some of the past feelings of joy into? I know there's lessons learned, But I mean, day-to-day life beat people down in the sense that they get so caught up in, the typical stuff, bills and, like.
I will tell you, when you had community, everybody took care of everybody.
Yeah.
In your neighborhood. My wife is a chef, and she feeds people in our neighborhood. We've got a single guy, and he only lives there during the winter. He switches with his mom. He goes down to Florida in the summer, and she comes back to Kentucky. But she found out all he had in his freezer was
if you say a severed head, I'm very upset.
No, it was frozen dinners. And when she found out, she goes, that ain't happening. And so now she makes stuff, understanding that some of this is going to go to him, and she puts it in his freezer. That's all he eats now.
That's amazing.
And he takes
still
care.
Eat it on like a TV tray.
No. She puts them in a nice little thing that he can warm them up. But
I meant, like, does he sit down on the couch with one of those fold out TV trays in front of him?
I don't know. But he actually helps people in what he calls the semi-hood. And
semi-hood.
I didn't even realize
hood-like.
Yeah, hood-like. But anyway, for her helping him with his food helps him do more for the semi-hood.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sometimes if we could get back to where we're more engaged with our neighborhood, we can get back to some of those things that people used to do. And it's simple stuff that you can do for them.
There's simple things you can get to that point. You say hi, right? I mean, you want to engage with people. You're absolutely right. I've talked about on the podcast several times where it's like, it's all about the circles, I'm of the opinion that a lot of the issues that we run into, especially this day and age, being disconnected through the online stuff and all that stuff, is that we're in this global, not only economy, but also this global community.
Right.
And when we were dealing with, and we're always dealing with it, again, this has been going on for a long time. This is nothing new, but like the political side of it and like your opinions, you were more concerned. A lot of people were more concerned with people they've never met and they'll never meet than they were with the people that were living
next door.
Yeah. And so it's like, and even sometimes more concerned with it, like people that they'll never meet and causes. They're so focused on that. They don't, their home life is sacrificing because their health is bad. That's the inner circle is you and your immediate like significant other or people that you interact with all the time. Yeah. And then it's like you branch out. So now it's proximity. The proximity, it was easier when you didn't have access to news in
24 hours.
Not only 24 hours, but you didn't have news coming from, if you lived in Columbus, Ohio, you didn't get alerts from a story that was happening in Idaho.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's some benefit to hearing and learning some of this stuff, but if your focus is so far, your scope is that wide, you can't even focus on who you wake up next to and who you go to work with and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like your priorities shift.
It's true.
I'm super fortunate that like a couple of weeks ago, we talked, with my mom falling. She had actually taken my dog out. I was working a long day at the shop and she was walking out the front door, got, dogs across the street, got my dog, Tony's attention, but he's really gentle with her on the leash, right? Well, he got around the side of the house to go around back and just to hang out a little bit. Well, he turned and looked back and kind of took a couple steps and she wasn't prepared for it. She slipped and fell. She calls me, I'm working. And Doug, I'm telling you, like, this is very uncommon. The fact that she calls me, I'm fortunately down the street. It took me 20 minutes to get from Easton to here, which is supposed to be like 5 minutes tops.
Right.
But traffic at Easton and everything else. So I'm calling my one neighbor across the street that she sometimes looks after the dog, and we've hung out with the husband and wife and kids. And she was gone, like they were out. And she's like, I'm not home right now because my mom couldn't get up. So I'm like, heart's racing. So I call Matt and Abby across the street. They're home. And luckily they were about to leave like 20 minutes prior, but they were like, whatever, they were still at home. So they came over, helped my mom up, got in the house. And I'm telling you, if you don't take care of the things around you, the people around you, when something like that happens, you're stuck.
Yeah, what happened if you hadn't made the relationship you have with your neighbors?
That's what I'm saying. The effort that you put in and the enjoyment that comes from it too. Like we hang out. They were over like at the Super Bowl party. They were, we've had drinks. We like just I think it was last Saturday. I went over and they had a fire, and it was Kylie and Ben, Matt and Abby, and Kristen and I. We were all hanging out at the fire. Like I know I'm not close with everyone, but I have, Derek, the pastor 2 doors down. I have his number. If Matt and Abby didn't pick up, I'd call him. It's the effort that you make, just making relationships with people that are more close, like back in the day.
Yeah.
When you didn't have texting, you didn't have the internet, you didn't have all that stuff. Like the people you relied on with people around you. And you don't like every neighbor, trust me. I mean, that's the luck of the draw. But you got to at least put the effort in.
Yeah, I've got one on each side. I've got a neighbor on one side of me that I absolutely cannot stand them, and that's because they like to vandalize my property and throw a bunch of shit.
But
then I've got a neighbor on the other side that, they've been outside, in the summertime having a fire, and I've invited them over to have a drink while I was outside smoking cigars. Or when they had to talk last summer, they had to take one of their dogs to the vet for an emergency. They came over, knocked on my door, and was like, "Hey, we got to take this dog to the vet. Our other dog's in the backyard. Can you look after him?" Like, yeah, sure. I mean, we both rent this place and we're next door neighbors. We don't know each other all that well, but we were still friendly enough with each other and had conversations with one another that if all of a sudden something happened, like they would knock on our door and let us like, "Hey, we have a problem. Can you help us out?" Like, yeah, sure. I got you. If they were moving out or something, like, "Hey, if you need help, like, yeah, I'm there." If my other neighbors were moving out and they're like, "Hey, we need help," I may not help them, but part of me would sit there and go, "I am absolutely glad you're leaving. I will pack all your shit to get you out of here faster."
I know a good moving company, but if it's quicker to get you out, I got you.
I will throw all your shit in the street.
We're talking about neighborhoods. Back when I was coming up, and maybe you at the same, and probably you, other neighbors had permission to whoop your ass if you was a bad kid.
Oh yeah.
If the neighborhood looked after you, if you did something bad, your ass was in trouble before you got home. Stuff like that.
If your parents knew them and they were friends with them and all that stuff, they knew that they trusted their parenting style and all that stuff.
Yeah, and I mean that community is dearly missed right now. That your neighbor, like you cross the street here, if you had a kid or whatever, he was acting up in the neighborhood, and they come out and put a stop to it and drag their ass back to you. Like,
yeah, yeah,
he's messing up. We caught him. Boom, here it is.
When
you have a couple licks, so go easy on him. I already got him.
When you have,
all right, thanks.
When you have kids in a neighborhood, it's easier to connect with your neighbors if they have kids.
Yeah.
I know my one daughter lives in this cul-de-sac. They have 3 boys, and there's boys all around them, and they have that kind of community.
I love that.
Yeah.
No, I mean, like, so my ex that used to live with me here, and we got a dog. All of a sudden, when this was during COVID lockdown, right? So I was still working, like, we were keeping the shop going, all that stuff. But she would say, "Yeah, I met, this neighbor, and we had lived here. I had lived here before that, but like we had lived together." And she's like, "Oh yeah, so and so." I'm like, "Who?" She's like, "Oh, I was walking the dog, and I, ran into this person." And same thing, you know what I mean? It's like through that, even after the breakup, and it was just me in the house. Like, well, the neighbors that like Matt and Abby, like I was talking about earlier, they had moved in 6 months prior to the breakup, so we weren't that close with them. But we had hung out I had hung out with them a few times. Well, again, it was like as we were like hanging out, like they knew I was on my own at that point, and I was going through a breakup and all that stuff. They started reaching out more. Like, "Hey, we're having a fire. Hey, we're doing this." And like all of a sudden, like I had new phone numbers in my phone, new text threads going. And it was like there is an effort there. There's a want. And I have seen that a little bit with especially people in their 30s right now, that they were buying homes, and it's almost like it may have like skipped a generation or two, but now you see some of that there's people that, not everyone, I mean, it's all based on the person, but there's a little bit, again, this cyclical thing where they're proud to own a house. Some people are proud to mow their own lawn. They're proud to be able to afford to rent an apartment, even if it's in a bad part of town, but they're making it on their own. You know, not everyone wants to like keep up with the Kardashians and like millions of dollars and like, you know, drive the nicest car. People appreciate, and I don't think it's ever gone away. We just lost focus, you know, as a society, that it was like we glorify the rich and we glorify, hey, wouldn't it be nice? We talked about that last week. Wouldn't it be nice? Oh, it must be nice or whatever. It's like people work their ass off for stuff. And not everyone is making millions of dollars. I mean, sometimes it's nice the fact that you made it to a point that you bought your first home.
Sure.
You rented your first apartment.
Yep.
You paid off your car. You know, some of that stuff. I mean, that is coming back, I feel like. And I don't know if it has anything to do with like the last couple of years, but hopefully that interaction with your neighbors. There was a time where, you know, it's like the worst thing, like in my cul-de-sac here, is like I would see, you know, my neighbor and we would wave, and like maybe one of them had a mask on and I didn't, but we would still wave, and that's it. Because there's no reason for the drama unless, you know, it's like, oh, you're that neighbor that doesn't mow enough. You're that neighbor that, you know, you got shit in your yard. It's like, yeah, that'll do it because you're kind of disrespecting the neighborhood.
It kind of goes
You know
back
what
to
I mean?
it kind of goes back to 2 years ago when we had Michael Herklotz on the podcast.
Yeah.
He talked about the front porch neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it kind of goes back to that a little bit where, you know, there when things first shut down, you had people that were sitting on the front patio of their house instead of the back.
Yeah.
They were sitting on the front porch and, you know, waving at people walking by or driving by. They were seeing people in their neighborhood that they really hadn't seen or paid attention to before. Yeah. But now since they were stuck at home, like, you know, they might walk to the edge you know, each one of them walk to the curb and start having a conversation across the street with one another.
I think it's very basic. I mean, we just had, unfortunately here in the Midwest, we're going to have snow again. But when we had that snow and I was able to get out of my driveway, sure enough, I had Kylie across the street. She texted me. He's like, how the hell did you get out of the cul-de-sac? You know, Ben and Matt had to push out 2 cars this morning. And I was like,
all-wheel drive.
All-wheel drive. And then I got stuck like the next night pulling out my driveway. And then I'm out there shoving it, like laying in the snow, like shouldering it. Like, I'm going to break my fucking grill here. I don't want to do it, but I got to get my car moving. Shannon.
Well, I think the social media has played a big part, like Instagram and Facebook, of these fake lives and these high-end lives that seem so real. But I think people are coming to realize it's all shine. It's all facade.
It's all superficial.
It's very superficial. And people are, I think, are coming to grips with that more here lately and understanding that real life is not that. And they're ready to settle into more of a real style of living and honest living. I know I've kind of peeled back a lot from social media because it's just, it can take you over and you get caught up in all these people's lives, and then you hear the backstory and it's a bunch of bullshit. And you're like, well, shit, you know. But
I like the fact that we're actually knocking on people's doors and going to see them.
Yeah.
You know, in the neighborhood, you feel comfortable going to your neighbor and checking on them. Hey, everything okay? You guys doing okay? We're having a Super Bowl party. You want to come over? You know, that kind of thing.
Like this past weekend when we had the 70-degree weather on Saturday, Easton was packed.
Mm-hmm.
Fido's was packed. It was
one of the best
those of you
days
that don't
they've had
know,
years.
for those that don't know that you're elsewhere, you know, Easton is where the Tinderbox is, and a lot of us hang out. Fido's an Irish pub that has a great patio, and Easton is an outdoor high-end retail store or mall.
Yeah, it was just a beautiful thing to see people out talking, hanging out, sharing tables, just having fun, man, not thinking about all the crap that was going on, and just sharing life. It's nice to get back to that face to face.
On Sunday, one of the managers of Fido came over, and he didn't work Saturday, but he looked at the numbers from Saturday at the pub, and when he came over to buy a pack of smokes, he goes, "That's one of the best days that Fido's had in years, not even prior to COVID. Like it was just crazy because it was nice weather. People have been cooped up for so long.
We had 185 customers.
Yeah,
wow,
that's like December numbers for us.
Yeah.
I wanted to bring this up. I saw a video about this a while back ago, but I wanted to ask you this. Say news outlet, they went to California and they were asking people on the beach along the street if you saw a dog, not your own, if you saw a dog out in the water and you saw a stranger out in the water and both of them were drowning, which would you save?
What news outlet?
No, I'm not going to get into it, but
Why
they were
would
like,
you ask
if you saw a dog and a stranger that were out there struggling, they couldn't swim, like, and they needed rescued, like, who would you, if you could save one, who would you save? And at least from what they showed, there may have been other people that they interviewed that they may not have shown their answer. But the ones that they showed, most of the people, they're like, oh, I'm saving the dog. Instead of the human being.
I might save the dog. I don't know.
Well,
I'd go to the dog and then swim with the dog over to the person.
So you would save the dog first.
I feel like that's.
I would try and get other people involved in the beach and save them both.
Yeah, I got the dog.
Right.
You go get the person.
All right, we got the spark plug over here. Sean, dog or human? If you
show us something, you would ask me that.
no, I'm asking both of you guys in the audience. Come on,
What
man.
kind of dog?
Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
It does matter.
I know it does, but for the sake of this, it doesn't matter.
What kind of person?
You don't know. It's a stranger.
All right,
It's a
fine.
complete stranger. Not your dog, not your friend.
I'd feel like I'd try to get the one that's struggling the most first.
So the person, because I mean, dogs inherently know how to swim. Typically,
Yeah,
it's
so
called a
probably-
doggy paddle for a reason.
Yeah, probably the.
You're right.
I'm gonna go to hell either way.
I don't think you will.
No.
Unrelated, you might, but
Yeah,
I don't think this decision's going to doom you.
I would say, God, that's a tough fucking call.
10 Hail Marys when you're done.
I'd go with Steve's logic. Try to get the dog first, and then the human. Try to do both. I'd do it with your logic. I try to get them both. I mean, or recruit someone else to help me. One get one, one get the other. If you're on a,
I think I would go to the dog
Top
first.
out the answer.
I would go to the dog first, and I would kind of like give the little like shove towards the shore. You know, get him out of like if there's like a riptide. You know, pull like
Right.
try to like, which you shouldn't go out. Like, if you're going out on a riptide, first of all, you're all fucked. Right?
Yeah.
And that's day one on Baywatch. But I'm saying like you go to the dog, you try to like kind of push them towards the shore, and then they'll figure it out.
Here's another
In the
thing.
riptide, you gotta go parallel. to the
Here's what I
beach.
would do. Actually, with what Steve said,
Do I have dog treats with me?
is
No.
I'm just curious.
if you get the dog first, that's going to be less of a struggle to try to get the dog on land rather than a person that's flailing. At least you give the dog, like you said, a first chance, and then you conserve your energy to be able to go get the human second.
I think Mitch Buchanan would be very.
Are they
happy
both?
with you.
Are they both out as far? I mean, equidistant.
If you could only save one.
All right, so here I am. I got Tony at the beach with me, right? So I have dog toys with me.
No.
If I had what I would do is I would swim towards the dog with a squeaky ball or toy that and I'd swim out to the dog, get close to it, squeak the ball, get the attention, throw it back to the shore. Dog's cool. If you do this, so scientifically, if I swam out to the person with a squeaky toy, squeaked it a couple times, threw it back to the shore, the dog's probably fine. Like the dog still picks up on it. The person will not respond to a squeaky toy. Is that what they said on the news?
No, I'm sure it was the dog most of the time.
Most people were going after the dog first. They were going after
People can suck.
they were going after the dog instead of their fellow man.
But you know what? Honestly, dogs are pretty self-sufficient in the water.
Yeah.
I mean, they really are. They can dog paddle for a long time.
You got it.
Is it a man or a woman?
It doesn't. It's a stranger. It doesn't matter.
You can't ask
They're
that
all-
these days.
They're
You know,
100
one
feet
piece or
out
a
from the
two
beach.
piece.
Their heads underwater. It's just their arms flailing in the air.
You
Like,
go get them.
Okay.
You go get them.
Shannon, did you want to answer the question? Is that where you're at?
yeah, you're on.
I think I would go for here's my logic. I'd go for the dog because usually when you try to save a drowning person, they're flailing so much they'll take you under too.
That's
I'm
true.
not trying to drown. I'm trying to save something.
Bobby Hirschman says, dog might panic and claw and bite you.
Well, you also know that if the person's out there and they're drowning, they're probably too stupid to save.
Right.
Jesus.
But if they get caught if they got caught in a riptide,
Dog one.
that has nothing to do with their. If they got caught,
Dogs are intelligent. You're absolutely right.
I mean, really,
Most breeds.
some
breeds of people are.
What do they call that? Natural selection.
Darwin.
Yeah.
What brought up that scenario? Yeah, back in time.
We're talking about this sense.
There we were.
We're talking about this sense of community and knowing your neighbors,
All
and
right.
getting to know complete strangers that then become friends.
Mm-hmm.
Here's a situation where you have a stranger and you have an animal.
Dog loves unconditionally.
That guy owed me $5.
It's stranger. Stranger. Does that dog owe you $5?
All right. All four of you picked dog. Gotcha.
Well, I had a strategy. I feel like you're oversimplifying my answer.
I think you were overcomplicating to push your way out of giving a straight answer.
It's called thinking it through.
Thinking outside the box.
Thank you.
That's right.
Thank you.
We are outside the box.
There's always another. There's not just one or two answers.
That's
There's
right.
always,
That's right. That's right. In a scenario like that, you can save both.
especially if you're Steve.
If you have a squeaky toy, lesson learned: always carry a squeaky toy to the beach, just in case this scenario presents itself.
Well, if you were the
Got
one
my
out,
phone, got my cooler. Oh shit, my squeaky toy.
Well,
if you were the one out in the water, someone better have a cigar or a bottle of whiskey.
I was gonna say, could I smoke
Throw
my
a bottle
cigar?
of booze towards the beach. Shit!
Could
Is
I
that
smoke
bottle
my
open?
cigar in the water?
Everyone would be sitting there going, "Oh, is that a Blanton's? Come here. I'm gonna swim all fucking day to try and get that, or a Weller foolproof, whatever."
Or the strategy could be is you throw a bottle of Blanton's into the water towards the person, then everyone goes and tries to save. So again, there are ways you can go about
No,
this.
I guarantee you throw a
Alright.
bottle of Blanton's in the water, everyone's gonna be fighting over the bottle of Blanton's. Fuck the person drowning.
Yeah, I'm just saying, you get more people in the water. Jesus.
I'd also ask, where's the lifeguard?
Yeah, no kidding.
Well, Pam's got her own flotational devices.
Fair enough.
I don't think we've had enough bourbon. That's what you.
It's starting to sound like we have. I'll tell you that right now. I don't even know where to go with this at this point.
Well, I think COVID has helped create some community. It's
I
also
agree.
divided us a little,
I agree.
but I think people are more aware of each other. It's split families. I mean, honestly, over some of this stuff. And
Yeah, it's interesting. Even like back in the 80s with the threat of like the Cold War and everything like that. I mean, I hate to say it, it's the first time in a long time that Russia has been a polarizing news story in America.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, since everything changed over there, and I'm not gonna
Probably since the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah. I mean, there's some, so we have a customer at the shop that, she comes in, buys cigarettes, and she's from Ukraine.
Mm-hmm.
And she was talking, she's got family, all of her family. She's the only one here. So all her parents who were elderly. And, but I mean, she was just saying, she's like, yeah, everyone wants to help, but no one's doing anything.
Yeah. She told,
Which I think is a common, very good, aware comment on the quote help a lot of people are doing. Yes, some people are putting money, some people are doing stuff, and no one expects everyone to go and try to be on the front lines. I mean, I get it, but the social media posts of prayers for Ukraine and they're the same. A lot of them were the same social media accounts that were prayers for Cuba when they didn't understand what was going down in Cuba. Prayers for whatever. It's like this is the new thing. It's now developed into a little bit more of information coming across. Yeah. But now that's dividing. I mean, some of the Instagram, some of the Twitter feeds that just like with COVID, it's depending on what you follow, the news sources, it's a terrible situation over there. But you got a lot of information coming out now that when in Ukraine there's, I don't even get down this rabbit hole. Biological weapons that the U.S. was doing in Ukraine. I don't know. I haven't looked into it much, but now that's the other side of it that's going out there that now the U.S. is guilty of something with that. And it's that's the real world, man. That's what's going on in the world. I mean, it's not what it's about. It doesn't justify anything, but it's again, that you think that your local government or your federal government, whatever country you're in, you think they're telling you everything? Absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not. And I appreciate people that will post an Instagram story or whatever, prayers for Ukraine. And I think that goes back to what I was saying earlier. Majority of people, I think they have a good heart and they care about people.
If you get down to that level.
Yeah. It's just the amount of effort that you put into it. And there's no right or wrong answer. Like you're saying, like with this whole dog and person scenario on the beach, it's like, there's no right answer. It's the fact that you pick the people apart that give the answer that you do not agree with. If you pick the dog over the person, someone's going to be offended and say you're a terrible person because you picked the dog or you picked the person. You know what I mean? That person put themselves in that situation. The dog doesn't know better. That dog, you know, like whatever it is, like the dog's just a dog. You should go after the person. You know what I mean? How upset do you get about
it? If what was happening right now in Ukraine happened 30 years ago, before the internet, before social media, how likely do you think it would be that we would even know about it, or how much would we know about it?
You would know about it because, and especially the older generations would know about it. The younger generation may not know about it because at that time the media was 3 news stations and your local newspaper.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
It would take a lot of time.
It wouldn't be instantaneous.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not.
Well, your phone wouldn't be going off. Same thing with COVID. Same thing with the politics and all that stuff. It's like you wouldn't be able to subscribe to whatever city you're in or whatever state you're in. You can't subscribe to whatever the New York Post or your New York, like whatever Chicago Tribune. You couldn't subscribe to that and they ship it to your house. You had to be in those cities that they had the biggest media giants that once again are always politically fueled.
Well, honestly, they say if we had social media back in World War II, it'd probably be different.
100%.
Because that brings the war directly to you in real time. And, we're seeing stuff that they want us to see from
We've
Ukraine.
never seen this.
And,
well, Desert Storm back in the early 90s, like that was one of the first conflicts that in the U.S., like we were seeing news stuff every single day. We actually had reporters over there that were then, sending video back of what was going on a daily basis. And because I had an uncle who was a Marine at the time, and he was actually stationed in Kuwait and actually went into Iraq, even though you didn't necessarily hear about it that much directly. But the news agencies were out there at that time because that was kind of a big deal. And that was one of the first times where we saw news media covering a foreign engagement like on a daily basis. And I remember as a kid at night when my mom would get home from work, she would always turn on the TV and turn on the news because that was her brother. That was her brother that was stationed over there. And she had a brother-in-law as well that was stationed over there flying AWACS missions. And she was watching the news hoping she wouldn't see, her brother's name pop up on the screen.
So you're absolutely right. And when you come over here, you're the first one here every Wednesday, right?
You've got the news on TV.
Yeah. How common do you think that is?
Nowadays,
how common do you think that is with early 40s? Demographic wise, do you think that people come home from work and they sit down and they watch the 5 o'clock news, the 6 o'clock?
Probably not as common as it was.
There's a feeling of a lack of need to, because they've already been on Twitter. They've already followed their accounts that they follow. We talk about like echo chambers, they follow the people that follow the narrative that they feel comfortable with. This is a big like tie into the whole McFly and like Back to the Future thing. The original Back to the Future was obviously he goes back in time and has more technology than the people that he was like his people that he interacted with. Then you go to Back to the Future 2, and it's all this technology that is like, oh my God, like even back then you're like, oh, that would be great to have that. They did not hit it on the head. Like not only like they did have like news would pop up, like when you saw that the Cubs won the World Series, you know what I mean? Like I love that, obviously as a Chicago fan, but they didn't hit it on the head that they never predicted. And in that movie that they would have these handheld devices where it would be alerting them constantly. Right. there was still, if you remember when Marty McFly got fired in the beginning, and it was through fax.
Yeah.
Remember that? And the faxes came through everywhere.
But he was FaceTiming his boss.
He was video chatting. That they did have that. But you brought up like the Gulf War, same thing with like, 9/11. You had to be in front of a TV to watch that live.
I did.
And a lot of people know where they were at. Like that was the JFK assassination of our generation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like not everyone that is living today, that knew where they were when JFK got assassinated.
I do.
You do. But again, me being in my 40s, Nate's in his 30s, I know where I was at
9/11.
When my roommate said something's going on in New York, and I was on my way out to class. Something happened with the Twin Towers.
Yeah.
And I walked down there, and it just didn't even register. Like the mindset of a 20, at that point I was 20, 21, but it didn't even register. I was like, oh shit. Like, and I went to class. It wasn't about, it was, but to your point, like, do you think if we had iPhones in our pocket on 9/11, do you think that it would have been a different scenario? People were calling people on cell phones, but I mean, as far as the reaction to that, it was very like delayed and kind of like.
I think if we had smartphones at that time, people would just been looking at the alerts, like, oh, plane hit this building, plane hit this building, plane hit the Pentagon.
Yeah.
Like we'd have just seen those little snippets.
Blurbs.
But that was one of those things because I remember I was a senior in high school, and we'd kind of heard about the first plane, and then I walked into my government class as soon as and there was a TV right above the doorway, and because when I was in school, like every day in homeroom they would show a news program that was designed for school kids.
Sure.
And I remember I was the first one to walk into my government class, and I turned around and my teacher had the TV on. I turned around and watched live as the second plane hit. Yeah. And then he had to turn the TV off because we had a quiz that day. And so as we're all taking this quiz,
like wondering what's going on.
Yeah, we had no idea what was going on. And I had a relative that was stationed at the Pentagon at the time.
Yeah.
And
sorry.
No, you're fine. And
that's how this works.
And I remember but I remember taking the test, and I finished my test, turned it in, but I still had to sit there because not enough people were done with the test. I was one of the first ones done. And after about half the class was done, my teacher said, hey, I'm going to turn the TV back on because of the gravity of the situation. If you guys that are still taking the test need me to, I'll mute the TV so that way it doesn't distract you guys. But I'm going to turn the TV back on. And I remember sitting there going, watch there be another fucking plane. And he turns the TV on, and the first thing they say is, oh, we just got a report a plane hit the Pentagon. I'm like, well, shit. Like, I hope my uncle's doing okay.
Yeah. No, I guess I brought that up because, like, when Doug comes back out here, we can talk about that, is that, we all have that nostalgic side of things.
Well, my wife was texting me. She remembers everything going on when Princess Diana died.
Right. My mom was a big fan of the royal family and as well. But I guess my question is, and my point would be, is that are we better off with the immediate technology that we have? Are we better off? Did we learn anything from the last couple of years? Do you want to, like, is the reminiscent, like the memories and that nostalgic thing, like with the McFly cigar, like it brings up good memories, but like no matter the time period, there's always going to be tough times going on at the same time. So I'll you got it.
Got it.
Don't pull muscle there.
I've been working out. I'm good.
Are you stretching? You're getting old. Are we better off, Sean, in the audience? Are we better off now with the technology? Do you think that our society is better off now with what we have available to us than we were when it was.
Just watching.
Doug, you're walking back out, so I'm saying, are we better off now with the technology that we have that we always wanted? Looking back at Back to the Future, especially 2, that we have all these advancements, that we have this information that's always available. We have everything at our fingertips. We're connected more, but based on the conversation tonight, we're disconnected a bit from our neighbors. Are we better off now with all of the things at our fingertips and where it's going from here than we were when we didn't have all that information and you did rely on your local news, you relied on your local area? Are problems created or solved more often with our current technology and on the things that we want, or is it a age thing that back in the day, like we were closer with our local community, we were tighter knit as a country, as a world, because that country over there was the enemy, or you didn't, all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Did we learn anything from the last 2 years that we have all this information at our fingertips and we're bombarded with it? Is that a better thing or a worse thing? Or do you think that it will change in the next 5 to 10 years now that we have this quickly advancing technology that you're going to have more information flooding you?
Yes and no. I think yes, because it's in today's day and age with your jobs and stuff, it's a lot more beneficial.
Sure.
And to learn about things. But when I say no, I think of the things like you were saying earlier, like as a child, I'm 51 now, and as a child growing up, my days were outside and with my friends, and I became so much more social, interact with people on a personal and face-to-face level that now you don't have that as much, especially with kids. Like my kid just turned 14. And
happy birthday, Molly.
Yeah, thank you. And they loved, the past few summers, I loved it because they would go out into Westerville because all their friends were there and they'd ride bikes.
Yeah.
And they did shit I did when I was a kid. And I love that. And you could tell they were just so much more happier. And then, when things came around with COVID and everything, and not even with COVID, like kids get more sucked into their phones and their tablets. They don't have that outlet that we used to have because it's just everything's kind of given to them.
Do you think adults have that as well?
Yeah, I think it's a lot of the adults.
We wanted all of this.
We did, but now it's
honestly, we wanted all of this.
But I think too, it's created a bigger division between all of us. It's created, friends that people just hung out and just got to hang out with, and now all of a sudden it's like, well, they think this way, and I don't know if I want to hang out with them anymore.
Yeah,
because they're being fed all this shit. Yeah. And some's true and some isn't. So you don't know what's true and what isn't half the time you see any of these things. So, I miss the days where it was more of a, it's nice to have the phones to be able to call people and get a hold of each other with texting. But anything past that, it's like, I miss those times. As a matter of fact, like Saturdays, I've been coming on the tinderbox more.
Yeah.
And that, I love doing that because I get to meet someone new every time I go in there.
Yeah.
And usually, some people look at their phones when there's some downtime, but for the most part, you're actually sitting across with someone, having a cigar, and talking about life and talking about things, and you get to learn something from these people, not from, through a phone or a tablet or something, but you're face to face. And I think it seems like when I come home, even from this or the Saturdays that I go there, I am like so much happier and like, just like, I feel like there's some kind of dopamine release or something because I feel so good. And, and there's times and we're all guilty of it. You go down the rabbit hole looking at your phone with TikTok and all that bullshit. And you get done looking at it and you're like, Jesus, I just wasted like an hour looking at this thing where I could have been out doing something or, or going out or doing whatever. So yeah, I think if you could dumb it down a little bit to what we have to make things like available for things that we need that are important for like our job or just, some quick research. But aside from that, man, like cut it back. And it's tough in the wintertime because it's easy to fall in that, but the weather sucks. It's always dark. It's easier to fall back into that. But, I was fighting some depression during that time. And Teresa, thank God, she's a counselor, but she gave me some ideas. She wrote on a list of things like, when you're done with work, here's 10 things you can do that's not involved with your phone or TV.
Yeah.
And it was like, one was going to the tinderbox. One was taking the dogs just for a quick lap around, no matter what the weather is, going outside, do a little meditating. There's all these little things. And man, I tell you what, when I started doing that, life got a lot easier.
Yeah.
So that's my long and short answer.
I think that, so we always say like technology moves faster than we do, right? Especially these days. And it has for a long time. A lot of times it's made to make things easier on us. But again, I mean, in this last several years, the people that are coming up with that technology may not always, like, they are Facebook and Twitter and all this stuff, media, like they see it from a certain vantage point that then all of a sudden is supposed to translate to every personality type and every lifestyle and everything else, right? So it doesn't matter what you make, where you come from, what your demographic is. You have a phone that has access to all this stuff, and it's forced upon you that you have to be able to afford it, right? So all this technology that we're able to do. But I am of the opinion that, Sean, that we can't adapt as quickly as it did with technology. So at that point, it's like you have all this information. We don't have the scope or the brain power to be able to process everything that is being fed to us. It happens so quickly. And it's like, it's not about necessarily, it happens, but it's not about manipulating people all the time. It's literally that you can't process it enough. And to hear that, Teresa, your wife, as a therapist mindset is, what does she do? She tells you, go back in time, go see people, get out of the house. Don't look at your phone. All this technology that you have at your fingertips that you worked your ass off, and I have to buy a new phone, I have to buy an iPad, I have to buy a TV, I have all the streaming services. We do this because that's what we wanted to do as we were growing up, and now you have it, and you're like, take a step back. Let's get back to seeing people. We need to get you out of the house. We need to do all this stuff. It's like not enough people are getting told that. So I think that's the true cyclical side of all of this, is that we think about these fond memories of our childhood or growing up and how things were simpler back then. They were fucking tough at that time. But there's new problems, and there's more information. There's more problems that are being introduced to you, and that the mental capacity is being tested in the fact that it's like, I used to worry about what's happening in my hometown. Yeah. Now I'm worried about what's happening across the world or some city in the US that I've never even fucking met anyone from. Yep. And I'm spending my mental energy worrying about people I've never met, I'm never going to meet. But did you hear about what happened in Wichita or this part of, wherever in the US? You know what I mean? It's like, it's just like, literally, did you hear about that story? No, but I'm not going to look it up. And I'm like, that is terrible. Like, we should do something about that. And it's like,
that actually reminds me of an old Jeff Foxworthy joke where he talked about the news in the US, like getting so tired of the news because it was so depressing. And he goes, there was a story of a bus in India that went off a cliff and killed 200 people. And he goes, I can sit there and go, oh my God, how do you get 200 people on a bus? Like that was his first thought. But I think the technology thing is kind of a catch-22.
Yeah.
Like, it's allowed us to get information on what is going on all over the world instead of just in our local community or our state. But I think something that you've been talking about lately on the podcast is it's caused us to broaden our circles so much that we kind of neglect the inner circles.
Yeah.
And we forget to take care of the people that are closest to us. And so, like, the great thing about, smartphones and stuff like that is we have all this information at our fingertips, and we can hear about stories that are happening all over the world. But at the same time, those same devices, like, they're like, for example, for Facebook, like, we can hear about stories that are going on all over the country, all over the world through Facebook, but then we can also only follow things that we agree with, and then we become friends with only people that are like-minded with us, and then we shun out people that we used to be friends with because they don't necessarily agree with us. And like after I graduated college, the main reason I got on Facebook was that way I could stay in touch with some of my friends from college or from high school. But then as I was actually talking with a lot of those people, some of those people on a daily basis just kept spewing so much negativity and so much hate, regardless of what side of the spectrum they were on. There was just so much negativity that it started having a negative impact on me. And so even though I wanted
negative energy.
Yeah. So even though I wanted to stay in contact with those people, it just became, more trouble than it was worth. And so I had to drown those people out. And I kind of recessed a little bit back to, all right, I'm going to actually talk to people face to face. I'm going to hang out with people.
If you can.
I'm going to hang out with people like in person, even if it's at a cigar shop. Like there are different people that come into a cigar shop and hang out. Like I can have a different conversation every single night that I'm at the Tinderbox, because there's different types of people that are walking in. I'm not pigeonholing myself into just one viewpoint or one type of person. So there's been good and bad things with it, but I think a lot of times, I mean, it depends. Sometimes we appreciate all the good and hearing stuff about what's going on, but then also we hate about hearing what's going on just in our own circle.
100%. Sean, your comment, and then if you want to do a little closing remark, and we got to get to that point.
Yeah, okay. I think that just with like the social media and stuff is it's exhausting. When when Steve talked about you're seeing like other towns and all these things are happening in other areas that we've never known before with all this what we have at our fingertips. It sucks for you feel bad for the people that are suffering, but it's exhausting because there's always something. There's never a break. And kind of leading my second point was the one thing that I did a few times is I logged off of my social media for a couple months at a time because I was getting sick of the highlight reel. Everybody looked happy. Everyone was great. Everyone was traveling and everyone was for this. And, that should just fucking wore me out. And when Charlie Creekmore was saying read a book, I did read books when I did that. And I tell you what, I was more mentally I wasn't like drained. I just felt better. Yeah. And there's the FOMO, fear of missing out, you're like, oh, I'm not on. And in the first couple of days, it was tough because it's almost a natural reaction to grab your phone and go Facebook, Instagram. It's like,
it's second nature. It's
but there are times though where I'll go a few days without looking at Facebook or any of that stuff. I don't log out necessarily, but all of a sudden I realize I have more energy. I'm able to just kind of, I'm talking to my family more. We'll sit the last 2 weeks we've been sitting at the family table.
Probably more positive energy.
Yeah. And like playing, like there's a kid's version of Cards Humanity. So Molly loves playing that. So we like
just called Apples to Apples.
No, it's like, it's actually called Cards Against Humanity family version. So you're not getting deep and disgusting.
Just throw a couple cards in there from the other one.
Oh yeah.
That's when it gets interesting on family night.
But it's, we
R-rated movie. Oh, how'd that come on?
But, with Molly being a teenager, there was a while some disconnection between all them and us because they were in the room all the time. And I had to sit down and talk with them. Teresa's getting worried that, we're growing distant apart from them. And I sat down and I don't think Molly realized it. And then we finally had that talk. Molly's been not in the room as much. And they talk with their friends on the phone or whatever. Yeah. But now they're out and want to spend time with us. Yeah. And it's just made us even stronger as a family. And it creates just the connection that we've been missing. And I think that's and I think that's kind of my wrap up here is just like, take what you're given with that we have access to, use it to a point, but almost purposely take a couple days away from it and see what it does. Do an experiment, see what it does. Read a book. talk to your loved ones at home. Just shoot the shit with them. Like sometimes Teresa and I will just sit and have coffee on Saturday mornings, put our phones away and talk about things. And it really like reconnects us. And then that, I think, by being able to get out and go to the tinderbox and, and that, I think that's another great thing. There's just something about it. It just brings me back to what life was like before it.
Yep.
So
use technology. Don't let it use you.
Yeah, that's
great.
a good point.
Yeah.
So,
Doug, you want to do some closing remarks?
Well, I think technology is a good thing, but like I said, you have to filter it because there's so much out there. You have to use your mind and understand that not everything that you see on social media is real.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm saying. Use technology for what it's good for, but don't let it use you. And I think what Sean was saying is like you get into a habit of using it on a regular basis and you let it impact you more than you should.
It runs your life a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you've got to be skeptical of everything you see and just kind of filter it and find out if it's real.
Yeah.
So use some common sense, and that's not so common.
No, that's both of you guys super impactful. Thank you.
It's so uncommon, it's marketable now.
Smoke more cigars and drink more bourbon. That's what I
You
say.
do need to just a touch in your glass for the cheers at the end, at the very least. I'm just saying, you at the end of part one, we didn't have any whiskey in your glass. I'm not saying you have to fill it up. I'm just saying.
Well, he can polish off that
just a
bottle.
nip.
it is funny though. I will
It's
say,
his bottle.
a lot of my buddies that were single like a few years ago, they were like, "Yeah, I talked to." Sorry, it is funny. A few years ago, my buddies who were single were talking to girls, and I'm like, "Yeah, well, what they have to say?" And I'm like, "Were you talking to them?" No, I was texting them. Like, they ain't fucking talking. I mean, back in our day, it was like
You actually had to go out and meet.
yeah, or to call somebody's phone. If they don't answer,
They
hopefully
weren't
have an
home.
ansering machine, or keep trying back later. And
That's
Well,
it.
if one of the parents answered the phone.
yeah,
Oh,
so but
the
that's
story.
like, I mean, how often do you think people that are single now are actually talking to people on the phone? It's all text
or email.
Yeah, and you don't get like that genuine connection with somebody through voice.
Yeah.
It's all through text, and you can misinterpret shit and all
Absolutely.
that stuff. So anyway,
At
sorry.
least we have
Good
FaceTime.
point. Good point.
All right, Nate. Let's hear the closing remarks here. I was going to jump in, do it first, but go ahead.
All right.
I put you on the spot earlier tonight.
Appreciate it. What memories are you making today?
All right.
So when you brought up back in time, immediately I started thinking back, kind of that nostalgia that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
Things I used to enjoy when I was a kid, hanging out with my dad, riding my bike around the neighborhood, hanging out with friends. Like that's the kind of stuff that immediately jumped into my mind when you mentioned the topic. And I touched on it earlier. There are things that we may be doing today that become one of those fond memories as we get older in life. So I think sometimes we need to actually consciously think about what kind of memories do we want to have 20, 30 years from now? Like when we retire, what do we want to remember from our younger days? Do we want to sit there? I mean, when we're 65 years old, sitting on the back patio, smoking a cigar, drinking whiskey,
Like me.
like Doug.
I was like, all right.
Do we want
Pay attention to the room, man.
do we, well, but
Know your audience here.
no, I know. Do we, you and me, Steve, do we want to sit there, 20, 25 years from now and be like, I remember this great conversation I was having on Facebook.
No.
Like, that's not the kind of memory that we want to have.
Fair.
I remember following this Instagram account and seeing all this stuff. That's not the kind of memories we want to have. We want to have the memories of hanging out with people, doing things, doing activities, going places, taking a vacation and seeing sights and, having new experiences. Those are the kind of things that we want to think about. Doug's in a line of work where he gets to travel and meet different people have conversations with different people, interact with people on a face-to-face basis. And so even 20 years from now, Doug can still have those memories because he went out and did something. He wasn't just sitting on the couch watching TV, watching a movie, because he's not going to he's not going to remember, you know what, I remember, March 5th I was watching this movie sitting in my house in Kentucky. He's not going to remember that. He might, depend on how his memory is 20 years from now, he might remember being on the Bourbon and BS podcast.
Oh, he's going to remember.
Absolutely.
It depends on how much whiskey he has.
Those guys kept me in the garage for so long.
He might remember that.
It's the experiences and the people that make the
Steve's
difference.
dog
It
was barking.
It is the
inside.
experiences. It is the people that make that. And part of that, part of making those memories, put the phone down. You guys, Sean, you guys brought up earlier, like, we spend so much time staring at our phones. Yes, they're a great resource to be able to stay in touch with current events and things that are going on, but we just get sucked in this rabbit hole of just scrolling through Facebook and seeing the same stuff and following influencers on different social media platforms.
We're influencers, by the way.
We are.
Watch the Bourbon and BS podcast.
Yes.
There's a purpose behind this.
I know. I'm just kidding.
Like, people don't just like scroll around through Facebook and go, "Oh, podcast." Scroll. They may not.
They're talking about,
But
God knows what.
But you know what those
All
people
the
would,
BS.
All the BS.
you know what those people would probably enjoy more? Being in the garage while we're doing an episode of the Bourbon and BS podcast.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, like,
Sean's already picked up the mic again.
Yeah. So, like, if they're someone local, like, hey, if you actually want to be a part of the conversation live in the garage, like, get off your phone. Hopefully
come
Steve.
down.
If you can't get,
Hopefully Steve likes you enough that he'll give you his address.
if you can't get here, don't get off your phone. Enjoy the podcast live and join the conversation, though.
Yeah, but I was saying, if you can, like, get off the phone and actually make an experience. Is someone going to remember watching the podcast on their phone 10
Yes.
years from now?
Yes.
Maybe.
100%.
Do you think they'd remember it more being in the garage?
Yes.
Like, I know Sean Anderson last year.
I know.
Sean Anderson made the trip up from Tennessee to be on the podcast.
Yeah.
He's probably going to remember that, years from now.
Trying to get Ray Cheshire in the garage on next Wednesday.
Yeah, that would be an amazing
We
conversation.
got a doozy. I got Spencer and also Capes on the podcast next week.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, that is going to be an NC-17 rating.
I'm looking forward to it.
I am and I'm not. But
I'll watch.
It'll be entertaining.
But no, so my whole point is make memories.
I like it.
I like it. It's a good
Sean,
one.
go ahead.
I'll be quick. I'm going to just go off of what Nate just said, making memories. And going back in time, it kind of ties in with what I want to say. I mentioned this before. Teresa, my wife, has made a blog for Molly since the day we brought them home. And it started out being in like a little handwritten thing. And then it was like on like a blog like you normally do on a computer. But she included pictures and wrote down for the first 3 or 4 years, she'd do it weekly and do every day until maybe when Molly was maybe a few years ago, when Molly was maybe 10, 9, she'd do them like make one for like the past couple months. So every few months she does them. She's taken all those and made them into books. And there's a stack of books in our house, probably about 3 feet high, of books of Molly's life from the day we brought her home until now. And she's probably going to do it until at least Molly's 18. Anytime Molly wants to know what happened in her life when she was younger, she's got books to go by. And that's something that I don't know many people do that.
No.
And I wouldn't have the fucking patience to do it.
It's awesome, though.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
It's like color, thick, fucking real nice books.
Yeah.
And we try to take like we're going to California in a couple of weeks, drive down the coast, but we're always doing something with Molly to create memories for them. And I love my parents were able to do that, and I'm just glad that Molly is fortunate enough that we were able to bring them into our lives and bring us into their lives to create these memories and be able to, even for us to look back and look on them.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just think it's amazing. I still got to give her tons of prop for that, because
That is cool.
It's been a very tedious, very, years of hard work that she's done. So
Yeah.
But it's very rewarding.
yeah, very much so.
Yeah, absolutely.
I gotta say, with this back in time type of a concept that we're talking about tonight for the topic is, I like what you said, Nate, about creating new memories. That's kind of what I was alluding to when it's like, what are we doing to appreciate why we are nostalgic? Why are we so fond of the past that today, when you're dealing with day-to-day life, you're nostalgic and you love the past? And again, like the reason we did this was because of the McFly, is that like again, this is an 80s movie. It was iconic, and you guys with Oscar, you guys did this great thing with this, but you had to put a good cigar in it, right? So you have to have this thing where it's like, yeah, it was like it brought me back, but the cigar sucked. It's like, no, like it brought you back and you enjoyed it. You know what I mean? So you had those memories. We were talking about technology a lot tonight. I think that the big self-realization that I hope that I learn and can use going forward, and anyone listening to the audio, or if you go back and listen to it, the people are listening live, but if you go back and listen to this podcast, the show tonight was really about like the self-realization is, why are the memories of your past so fond? You have the childlike innocence. That's a big part of that. I think a lot of that, again, going back to Doug saying about gas prices when he was working with his family.
Yeah.
And, Nate, you were talking about, the fact that you were able to really try to reproduce the Jackal Nintendo game with your dad. You know what I mean? Those fond memories, those are the positives. And a lot of times I think people, they struggle to remember the good times. The negatives, just like business, right? You hear the negative reviews, you remember your negative times, you forget all of the vast majority of times that things were good. But the things that really impacted you and affected your life were the negative times. But when you remember those good times, it's so refreshing. You feel that innocence, you feel that joy. So there's a balance there, I think, that you have to really, moving forward, is you can have goals for your future. You have goals for, how do I capitalize on this day, and make it the best day that I'm going to have, and the people around me, I'm going to influence them. I'm going to really impact them. But it comes down to, with the technology side of it, is that there is also a self-realization there, is that you have to allow yourself to not only accept your pros and cons, your victories, your defeats, but you have to allow yourself, with all the stuff that we have now, when we're talking about, like, again, Back to the Future, we wanted all of this stuff, and now this is the problem.
Yep.
Allow yourself to catch up to it. So, Sean, you were talking about too, is like all the instant news. We're not ready for it. Technology is moving faster than we are as people, because from and not being an expert, like we talk about, we're not an expert on any of this stuff, but I can tell you for sure that we are not of the same wavelength that Mark Zuckerberg is, for better or worse.
Yeah.
So we're using this stuff. We're accepting this. We're enjoying it. And when it went a little bit political or negative, or it was emotional, we will catch up to it. And that's when the next technology, or the next Facebook.
You've said it a couple times that we're not ready for the technology that we have. We haven't caught
Correct.
up to it. What do you like? How are we not caught
The
up?
mental
Like,
capacity was not ready for the advancement. You reading your local newspaper, it used to be the kids used to like, I just don't read it. I'm just going to live my life. I'm going to like enjoy hanging out with my friends. Now, like Sean was saying with Molly, 14, right? Does she have an iPhone?
Yeah.
Does she have FaceTime?
Yeah.
That the mental capacity we assume is ready to be able to absorb all of this information, and we're not. So that's where the emotional struggles happen. We want all of the advances. We want to be able, we want things to be easier. And when they're easier, now all of a sudden it's like, well, were you prepared for all of this information? Absolutely not. So what happens a lot of times with this stuff is that years later or months later, whatever the timeline is that we start adapting to it. We stop subscribing to it. Because I'm of the opinion that the past, those glory days, the things were easier then. You start turning, and this is what, if you listen to this conversation tonight, you start turning this shit off. It's not because you don't want to hear it necessarily. We will catch up to it. Technology moves faster than we realize. If you remember the first computers, they were the size of this garage. And now you're annoyed with the fact that it's like, well, Doug was like, you didn't know, like, with the fact that the laptop's sitting in front of us.
Yeah.
It's like, you're like, well, I don't know if you were joking or not. I was like, I didn't know this guy could get all this stuff going. I didn't create StreamYard. I didn't do else. I use the tool for what we want to purpose it for.
Yeah.
But if you're just caught up in the technology and the information and all that stuff, you'll get lost, you'll get defeated, you'll get, you're frustrated because there's just so much out there. We're learning and trying to learn life and live life that you want to be able to be who you were at the core years ago and what you lived your own life and all this nostalgia and all this stuff, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s. And all of a sudden, these are throwbacks.
Yeah.
But I love the fact that we talked about some of the movies earlier and some of the toys and stuff like that. It's like the childhood stuff is like, you can have all that stuff. There's a parallel there that it's like this big bridge that really brings the generations together. If you use it right, it's great. If all you do is just, hey, we have this new app, we have Facebook, we have YouTube, we have the news, and they're feeding us all this stuff. Are you ready for it? Probably not. You wanted it. You're not ready for it. It's just like the future.
Yeah.
You want everything. You want the white picket fence. You want the family with 2.4 kids. You want all this shit. And it's like when life happens, and Doug, you would know better than Nate and I would, but it's like you want all this stuff. You want the family life. But when it comes to you, you have your first kid. You have your first grandkid. You did want that. Grandkids are easier out here. But the kids, the kids, you learn from it.
Yeah.
You're not ready. I want to wait until I'm financially stable. I want to wait till I'm like, I have this like stable home life, and then I'm going to have a kid. And then you have a kid, you're like, I'm not financially stable. I don't have a stable home life. My significant other and I are at odds. Now where it's not fun anymore. We have this other thing to take care of. Like, we don't have the capacity
right
going into it.
We wanted
but
it.
you do it. You adapt.
But you do it and you grow with it.
Right.
So all this stuff, that's why I like this topic tonight with Back in Time, like McFly, all this stuff. I look at like the future one, Back to the Future Part 2. It's like we wanted all this stuff. We still don't have hoverboards, by the way. And I'm as a kid, super disappointed. However, now as an adult, I look at it. I can't handle driving with other people. I don't care if it's a gas-powered car or electric car. I'm not going to be up in the air with these people. No. So that is a great metaphor that you're not ready.
That's right.
And
right.
We have to grow with it. So
It looks more like the Fifth Element when they're.
I'm telling you, it's a mess. So we want all this stuff. if you just get it overnight, it's a fucking mess.
Yeah.
And that's where we really have to grow along with it. And that's why that's
Absolutely.
my closing remarks. So, guys, cheers. Happy Whiskey Wednesday.
Cheers.
Thank you, Doug, for the
Thank
cigars,
you.
the whiskey. I hope you guys listen to part 1 as well. And thanks to all of our sponsors. And also, you guys out there that, you guys do the Patreon thing.
Yep.
The Buy Jack. I will remind you that the green shirt that I have on right now will be available for a few more weeks. And every shirt you purchase, $10 will go towards St. Baldrick's Foundation for Childhood Cancer Research. So thank you guys very much.
Good product.
And enjoy your week. And
Enjoyed
Doug,
it.
Thank you. Hope you come back.
It was
Cheers,
good.
guys.
It was fun.